everybody, welcome to the Horror Screams podcast, an extension of the Horror Screams Video Vault website. I am your host, Peter, alongside my co-host, Stephen.
Hello.
And once again, we are joined by Horror Screams Video Vault's own zombie nut, Sarah.
Hello again.
Yes, she has returned after a brief hiatus of 4 weeks of trolling through all the Friday the 13th films.
Yep.
So, what have we been up to, folks, before we jumped into this big episode, which will be all about the Friday the 13th films? Have we been up to anything?
I wrote about Saw and Seven for the book Spotlight on Horror. I did that this month. I think it was this month. It's all a bit of a blur. And I went back to work.
Oh, yay. Is that back at work, or is that in at home?
That's back at work at home. It's at home.
Oh,
it's all shifted. Yeah, homework, yeah.
Sarah, what's your work like? Because obviously you deal with animals, so...
I do, yeah. It's pretty much business as usual, to be honest. Looking after things, feeding things, making sure everything's okay. It's in the weather. It's been actually really nice because everyone else is stuck at home, not able to go out, and I'm out in the sun enjoying myself. So yeah, it's been pretty good, to be fair.
Well, Sarah's been outside enjoying herself. So on that note, I guess we'll move things on to we'll just jump into into Retro Rewind. Which is this month about Friday the 13th from 1980. So we'll get Stephen's jump off on the beginning of this first one.
Hey, yeah, Friday the 13th. So made in 1980, set in New Jersey.
Jersey, yep.
Big movie in the history of modern horror. And when you rewatch it, you kind of realise, oh, there's a bit of that, there's a bit of this, there's a bit of this and that. It's a movie that was clearly designed to cash in on the success of Halloween. And it opens with a scene that's a lot like Halloween and Jaws. Opens with a bit of a sing-song round the fire, full moon, 1950s prologue, typical kind of slasher movie prologue, where it sets up the first couple of kills and then, of course, cuts to the modern day. And at the very start, it's got the distinctive sound of the synthesizer, or whatever it is Harry Manfredini uses for the signature sound of the killer. What is that? That's a synthesizer, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which is very distinctive and very memorable. And the opening setup of Friday the 13th is the old familiar Halloween kind of point of view camera prowling around a campsite. And in this first scene, really, of the movie, you can see the formula that's repeated quite a lot later on. So teenagers being stalked by a camera. Two of them elope for a bit of a kiss and a cuddle, which is a lot like the moment in Jaws. They get killed by an off-camera killer, and then it's pretty much the title sequence. And what I always like about the titles of Friday the 13th is they kind of change every time. So in this one, it's the 3D image of the title busting through a kind of invisible sheet of glass, which I guess is meant to be the camera, right?
Or your TV screen.
It's really cool. Yeah, terrifying. People in the 80s must have been like, oh, Christ, we just got that from Radio Rentals or Hughes. Janine! And what I quite like as well about the very start is that the movies of the time, the horror movies of the time, all had, or seem to all have, kind of the Carpenterish electronic scores, but this one has a proper old-fashioned shrieking bunch of violins like Psycho. So I think in just 5 minutes, and one of the reasons I like Friday the 13th so much is that in just 5 minutes it's kind of a greatest hits package of stuff we like about what was then recent horror movies, Psycho, Jaws, Halloween, and that sums up, I think, the whole movie really. And the whole movie is in the first 5 minutes. You kind of get what he came for straight away.
And it has classic characters like Crazy Ralph.
Oh yes, I love Crazy Ralph. We're all doomed.
You'll never come back again.
Yes, he's great. He's the typical character you guaranteed you're going to have at least in a village somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Riding around on his little bike.
Yeah.
He is great.
The locals are great. I'd forgotten until the rewatch, but you get to like pop into the local diner a couple of times, which I really like. There's the lady server who seems really lovely, doesn't she? The server at the diner with the kind of odd voice and big glasses.
Oh yeah,
a lot of local colour.
She seems really friendly.
Yeah.
Almost like, as well as the lorry driver. The lorry driver was rather a bit too keen, I thought.
Oh yeah, he's all too keen to give her a lift.
Oh yeah, come on, yeah, I'll take you. No,
Camp Blood.
you don't want to go there, but hop into my lorry.
Yeah, I'll take you halfway, and you can walk the rest.
Yeah. Well, she had nothing to worry about. It's not like she had a big backpack on it. Oh, yeah, she did. She had a massive backpack, which was like twice the size of her.
Yeah, and she's the cook, isn't she? She's set up. I remember always forgetting that she, or at least in the early days of watching this, that she dies so soon, because it's quite cruel. It's a bit of a misdirection that she's set up maybe as potentially the heroine, because you're following her journey to Crystal Lake, and you've already had two people being offed a few minutes in the prologue, and she seems really sweet as well.
Well,
she
was only sweet for a minuscule amount of time. But yeah, as you mentioned, we then get into Camp Crystal Lake, which we don't even need to introduce that, because I'm sure if you're a horror fan, you're familiar with Friday the 13th. We don't really need to mention what Camp Crystal Lake is. But who's running the camp?
Yeah, it's Steve Christie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steve. Yep. Steve Christie's not much of a hunk, is he? I mean, we do get to. I mean, we'll get to the old eye candy, but Steve Christie's about 48.
Yeah, and a little bit creepy.
He's having an affair with Alice. Yeah,
or trying to. Yeah.
Yeah, I never got that. If the implication is that they have done things, but I wasn't entirely sure.
Well, that's what I always thought, is that there was something going on between them, because they spent so much time working together. Yeah, so I kind of figured maybe something had happened.
And she did the drawing of him and stuff, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it was like more in his head than hers. I think she was just like hoping the others would turn up quickly.
Yeah. Oh,
she always looks a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh no, company! Okay.
Thank God, quick.
At last. Yeah, I think maybe something happened. I always thought it was a lot of nonsense when they do various studies of slasher movies where it's just a virgin that survives, because clearly in most of these movies people are not necessarily virgins. Like Alice, I'm convinced she's about 26, so I doubt it.
No.
And in the sequels to come, people like Amy Steele, the heroines, are clearly not, despite the oft-used cliche in the analysis of these movies. But yeah, Steve Christie is not the sexiest man in this movie.
But he has a great moustache, Stephen. You just want to hold on to, and leave it like that.
To go.
So, one of the big people in this film is obviously Kevin Bacon, making his big screen debut, which... Who was that? You, Stephen? I thought it was. Yes. So Kevin Bacon makes his big screen debut in this, which probably over time has probably helped this movie. I would have thought outside of all the other 13 films, because this one is obviously the one that started it all off. But would it have stayed as being so popular if Kevin Bacon didn't go off to do other things?
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think it probably would have done, but I don't think he doesn't really mention being in it all that much. And I suppose, to be fair, he isn't actually in it all that much, really, is he?
No,
but he does have a good kill. I do like his kill sequence.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a classic, isn't it?
But it isn't the best part about it.
No. But, as I said, if it wasn't for this film, he wouldn't have all the sequels that we'll be mentioning later. But it was kind of, outside of all of the Friday the 13th films, that's kind of what my point was. Would this one be as memorable if it wasn't for Kevin Bacon being in the film.
It would probably struggle, I think, and maybe does struggle because it doesn't have Jason in it, not proper Jason. And people associate the whole series with Jason now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a little disappointing if you really have somehow missed out on knowing what happens in this one. If you go back to this one, you're like, oh, right, it's just that woman from some old American TV game shows. Ah, nice sweater. And yeah, Kevin Bacon, I suppose, helps a little bit. Although I think Ned should have been it. Whoever plays Ned, I think is it Harry Crosby? Yeah,
No, he was Bill.
That's
he was Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's more handsome, so that makes
Ned
sense.
Ned is Mark Nelson.
Oh, Mark, yeah. Ned's the first of many rubbish, doomed comedy characters who just
Yep.
is a general tit.
Yes.
Not quite as annoying as Shelley in number 3, but Ned, he shoots arrows at someone when their head's right next to the thing, and
Yeah, that is true.
for some reason pretends to be drowned for about half an hour just to get a snog from someone, not Kevin Bacon. So yeah.
So
I think Bill was quite a good character in it as well, though, wasn't he? You kind of warmed to him quite a lot, and he was in it throughout. And then when he actually died, you're just like, no.
Oh yeah, he's nice, isn't he? He's a genuinely nice. I think they're more likable than most, and yeah, Bill seems a good chap.
Yeah.
the character I always liked in this was the cop that turns up on the motorcycle. The kind of early 70s kind of badass cop that's taking no crap from anybody.
He's as mental as anyone, isn't he? Colombian gold. Yeah, the motorcycle cop is slightly strange. Everything's a little strange about the locals.
Yeah, just a tad. It's almost like something's been going on behind the scenes amongst each other.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe that's a good part of the film, that they're all quite twitchy because of what happened in those days. The fires, the murders, everything that everybody's secretly whispering about. Yeah, that makes sense, I suppose. Marcy's a bit weird, although quite likable. She has the dream about the rainstorm turning to blood. She shags Kevin Bacon, of course.
Yeah.
Briefly.
And they both get poked later on.
Yeah, the first sex and death thing. Brenda's a bit all right. She's quite friendly, isn't she? She seems quite a nice person, I think.
Which one was Brenda?
Brenda's one that's about 31, and
oh yeah,
she's one of. There's quite a few off-camera kills in the first Friday the 13th, which is interesting. She's one of them. You see her thrown through a window later.
Oh yeah.
But like Ned, she kind of wanders off, and then she's killed, and you don't sort of see her until she pops up as a corpse.
This was her last film. Yeah. The other thing that she starred in was The House of Seven Corpses, which was like 74, something like that.
Yeah.
So she didn't do a lot. So what was your best kill in this one?
It would have to be. I really like the axe in the face, actually. I think that's a great effect. I think that really holds up. And I think that whole sequence is really well done. It's really suspenseful. Not all of the Friday the 13th movies have scenes as genuinely suspenseful as that moment. She's quite likable, so you don't really want to die. She goes to the toilet or goes to wash up or whatever in the outhouse. Oh, shower, yeah, of course.
That lovely, clean. Oh my God, I can imagine how clean you will be after going into that shower.
Yeah, nice. And there's that great shot of the shadow of the axe, and then there's the typical kind of show the real weapon first thing where it hits the light first, and then you cut to the shock of seeing it right in the middle of her face. So that's a really good effect. I think that's really good.
But yeah, that is. I would say that's probably the best kill in the first one. Obviously, as the films go on, they get graphic or more extreme in individualistic ways. But yeah, I'd say that one, which has been copied quite a lot over the years in different variations of films. Some have been good copies of it, some have been terrible copies of it. But hey, they are going up against Tom Savini, so what can you expect?
It's also maybe the first of the obvious maybe nods to Bay of Blood, like I've forgotten which weapon it is in Bay of Blood, but it's some kind of machete that gets in someone's face, isn't it? Or some kind of cleaver.
It's a cleaver of some sort.
Cleaver. Yeah. There's a massive rip-off in part 2 with the two lovers impaled by the spear, but part 1, maybe that's the biggest nod to the earlier slasher movies like Bay of Blood.
Have you seen Bay of Blood, Sarah?
I have not, no.
There you go. There'll be something there for you to watch in the future, and you might see the kind of nods in Friday the 13th.
Yeah. I'll be like, aha, I've seen this somewhere before.
The thing I've always liked about the Friday the 13th films, which was a bit later after these ones, but it was always the trailers come when you have the sequel start coming out, and it'd be the kill count trailers. Do you remember those?
Oh, they were great.
Yes.
You could use the trailers to teach a child to count, basically, couldn't you? What? And they made no sense because often the tally wouldn't match with the tally in the film, or then hang on a minute, you counted that one twice.
26 kills. There's only 3 people in it. What happened?
Yeah. And the trailer for part 2, the voiceover says is, last year or whatever, 12 of her friends were murdered. 12? I don't remember 12.
No.
So they lie all the time. Trailers lie, it turns out. Shocking news.
Yeah.
But they were great.
Do you, apart from the obvious, does anybody have a favourite line from this film?
No, it just has to be Crazy Ralph's. We're all doomed, or you're doomed.
We're all doomed.
That's iconic, isn't it? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Which, again, as Stephen would know very well, considering he's done books on slasher things, that you've had a mixture of those characters throughout the years, being very, very familiar.
Yeah, they do a good, they do a nice pastiche of that kind of typical Harbinger character in Cabin in the Woods, which is really good.
Yeah.
Typically a guy at the gas station, isn't he? Or just someone they meet along the way to getting horribly murdered. It's the usual character. Yeah, and that's the kind of character I always look forward to. But Ralph has got to be one of the best ones. And it's a shame what happens to him. He could have perhaps been around for more of the sequels.
It's okay. They do get more, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Actually.
Crazy Ralph incarnate.
They're all variations. They're like the grave diggers in Shakespeare plays. They're really funny. There's that kind of that character.
And I suppose you also have like the line that Mrs. Voorhees says when she's like channeling Jason when he's just saying "Kill her, mummy, kill her, mummy."
Yes, that's great. Absolutely. That's one of the creepiest things. She's totally whacked, isn't she?
Yeah. She's batshit, and then that is like, isn't that part of the music that they choose for Jason? That's part of that line, isn't it?
It was devised as the first notes of what she's saying. And it's also what Thingy hears outside. It makes kind of more sense, doesn't it? Because is it Brenda that hears something in the night that sounds like a child crying?
Yeah.
I always assumed that's Mrs. V cracking up and doing that outside somewhere rather than her hearing a ghostly sound or something.
Mm.
Do you remember? I don't know if she did continue doing it later on in years before she died, but do you remember Betsy Palmer always used to say when the film came out that she didn't know? Well, we had Friday the 13th, and then the later sequels, but as eventually he ended up getting his hockey mask, his iconic hockey mask. But Betsy Palmer always used to say in interviews she had no idea who this Jason character was in the later sequels, because as far as she's concerned, her boy died.
It was a little boy,
1957 or whatever it was. So for her, the sequels don't really mean anything. That's what one of the things she used to say.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, that is true. It's weird how that's all the whole Jason things came about just from that one little movie where they've just literally latched onto that one little character right at the end and gone on to make all these other sequels when it was literally not really about him at all to start off with, was it? It was her getting revenge for his death.
Yeah, and he's dead. He's officially dead in the storyline. So maybe it's a rare one where the sequel had to come up with a whole new twist on, or I suppose contradict what the first one clarified. Although suppose the last line is then he's still out there, so the suggestion at the very end. Yeah. So I guess they're already ahead of the game, weren't they? They were perhaps thinking, maybe we could say if this is popular enough, we could say, he did survive and he's out there as a kind of feral figure. It's unusual.
Anybody who doesn't know, the Friday the 13th films are my favourite slasher franchise of all of them. Stevens is Halloween, I believe.
Yeah, I do shift between them. I have a lot of affection for the Halloween movies, but when I've rewatched the Halloween movies, I realised that there's at least 3 in the middle that aren't actually that great. And it's of course it's Halloween Resurrection. So quality control wise, maybe this is the best one. Although we were talking earlier about Nightmare on Elm Street. I think perhaps the Elm Street movies generally did a better job of keeping it fresh and changing things up.
Well, we'll talk about freshening things up a bit later when we go into the other sequels.
Sure, yeah.
But let's briefly talk about Jason. And obviously the character's died at the beginning of this film, but supposedly there's a dream sequence type bit at the end of this film where he turns up. Is he in the water or is he not? So the thing is, what is Jason? This is always one of those questions that, because a bit like Michael Myers, is he a supernatural character or is he a zombie or was he really dead? That kind of stuff. So what's your opinion on it, either of you?
Well, he's both, isn't he? Because they keep shifting the mythology as new directors or creators come on board. So as far as I was concerned, up until, well, he's not in 5, or is he? Sorry. Could he be bothered to show up? Up until part 4, when, the terrible thing happens at the end, I always assumed he was just what they talk about around the campfire. He survived drowning despite all the mythology that's built up around him, blah, blah. And he went out and was brought up by wolves or whatever. He lived in the wild and turned up as this obviously disfigured, although occasionally gets a haircut in between films, character. And then it's only when kind of the new gang comes in for part 6 that then they're like, all right, so he lost half of his brain from that one. We're going to have to make him into a Fulci-ish zombie. And then he's a zombie. As far as I'm concerned, from 6 onwards, he's supernatural, or he's a zombie, or he's some variation on that. Except for Uber Jason, that's a bit different. So yeah, I think it splits. But the first one, as far as I'm concerned, he's just a extremely strong and resilient human being that survived the drowning, despite what they all said down the pub.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
He survived and became a very bad man later on. That's what he did.
He's really miffed.
But this one, because obviously a lot of what Stephen knows as being in the Scream things, you have a lot of kind of poking out the obvious in slasher films about the weed smoking and the having premarital sex, etc., and all that type of stuff. This one doesn't tend to have a lot of that. It has the weed smoking, as you would expect it would do, but it doesn't have a lot of nudity, as people may suspect would be in this one. Obviously, it does happen. Interesting, yeah. It does happen in later ones, but this is the one that I suppose people kind of think this is kind of where it all span off from.
People's perceptions of this movie, I think, are often really confused by the sequels, aren't they? Or, I mean, the reviews were horrendous at the time. It was slated. Famously in America, Siskel and Ebert hated it so much they actually read out Betsy Palmer's address on their show and encouraged viewers to write basically hate mail to her, because she was quite a celebrity over there for family game shows. But it's relatively. It never was really nasty, although the perception is it's really nasty. There's not a huge amount of graphic gore, and as you suggest, there's probably like the hint of a nipple along the way. There's one sex scene. There's one really chaste bit at the start where they're just kissing.
Well, there's a sex scene which Kevin Bacon has his blanket tucked pretty much underneath his armpits, so all you get to see, sorry Sarah, is the back of his shoulder blades before he ends up becoming Deep Throat.
It's tricky, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know how to do that. It is a shame that you don't see more of the bacon.
No,
the bacon's bacon.
It leaves stuff to your imagination, though. You don't have to have everything there in front of you, do you?
No.
Don't they play?
Work on.
What's the game? Oh, they're playing Monopoly, aren't they? That's what I think.
Strip
Monopoly.
Yeah, with lots of saucy names for the properties that I can't remember right now. But yeah.
Well, the reason I just brought that up is because I was thinking, obviously, we've all played Monopoly. We all know how long it goes on for. So, if you play Strip Monopoly, that's really playing the long game in a way.
Yeah.
If you want to see somebody naked, you're just like, let's play Monopoly. Not Twister. I was playing Monopoly.
Catch your death in the process, just sitting there in your underwear.
Yeah.
For hours on end.
It's quite sweet, actually, when they play that, isn't it? They are quite sweet characters.
Yeah, they in regards to the slasher films, I would say in the Friday the 13th, if you're saying the franchise of films, I would say in the Friday the 13th films, they're probably the best written characters, as in you've kind of got people in it you root for, as opposed to later sequels or in any other later just slasher films in general. You sort of watching it and you just look at it and they go, right, you're surviving, and you are cannon fodder, which you're just waiting for the films to go through the motions. Which when I first watched the Friday the 13th films, which was decades ago now, but it was, you sort of watch it and you didn't really know. But I suppose that over time, as you start watching more of these sort of things, you kind of pick out who's going to be a survivor anyway.
Yeah, it's quite clever, isn't it? Yeah, it does have a nice bunch of characters. I think they took a lot from Halloween, and I think maybe part of it was just having that space in the film where there isn't a murder for a while, so that you can at least spend time with them just doing silly things. And even that scene where they're all freaked out by the snake in the cabin, which is heartlessly hacked to pieces, and it didn't need to be, by the way. That I think is quite nice, and you do get to spend some time, whereas by the time you get to part 5, they're brought on to be slaughtered pretty much immediately, and they're all quite likable. And Bill, like you said, Sarah, at the start, Bill is kind of groomed as somebody that, because sometimes they had a hero as well as a heroine, so he's kind of groomed as somebody that will survive.
Yeah,
he's
you think he's going to make it.
Yeah, and he's actually shows up quite gruesomely pinned to the door. I always thought that was quite a nice effect.
Yeah. You kind of see him disappear and you're like, oh God, he's gone somewhere. Kind of like the Ned thing, because you know he's been killed somewhere and you're just waiting for him to turn up. And then as soon as the door shuts, you're like, oh, there he is.
Directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who obviously started off the Friday the 13th films. But obviously we'll be talking about the other ones a bit later. But do you think his influence as the director for the first one worked its way through on the other ones, because obviously he did work as a producer, etc., for the other ones as well? Or do you think there was a time when people thought, let's try something different, let's take it away, give it a different look?
I think it's a very kind of simplistic film in the way it's directed. I think there wasn't really any individual styles that came in, maybe until perhaps one of my favorite ones, which we'll mention later, a certain point in the series where you think, oh yeah, that's actually a guy that set out to make it look a certain way, and this is really different. So I suppose in the sense that the first 2 or 3 do look kind of the same, they could have probably been directed by the same guy. Although I would say probably 2 and 3, but maybe especially 2, do seem to be more atmospheric and do seem to be made with a bit more care. And I think there's a lot more things like Steadicam work in part 2 and 3, which does give it a more Halloween-y theme than this one, which is a bit more straightforward. Obviously they're all low budget, but this was early and perhaps they weren't thinking of much more than getting the formula set up and getting X into B and slot A into tab C and all that kind of stuff.
So do you both have anything else you want to mention about this film before we go on to the next sequel?
Hey, oh yeah, there's things, isn't there? Like, I don't know how it was with you, Pete, and Sarah, perhaps coming later to this, but there were lots of talking points with this movie. I watched it with my family at home, but then it was also a talking point at school back in the day, especially the big shock ending, which was basically just the same as Carrie's ending, but it works really well. The soft music, the daylight, the water, and everything's great. Oh, the police are here. Fantastic. Let's get your coat. It was obviously designed to be the thing that people thought the credits were about to roll. But that shock at the ending, I think, was always one of the great ones that made people jump when you watched it at home.
One of those endings that, it has been copied, and which is not surprising because, films are constantly copying each other. So, but this is one of the films where you have an ending, you think it's going to end, and you go, It's a nice ending to it, and then of course you have that big jump scare type thing towards the end, which actually kind of works, as opposed to
really well done,
screechy violin, and obviously it's going to happen kind of things happening.
That's spectacular. It's a great piece. And then so many slash movies afterwards, and indeed the next sequels were big about trying to top that or doing the same kind of trick. But it works really well here, I think.
So before we go on to the second one, nobody has mentioned who the killer is, because majority of people have seen the Friday the 13th films, but those who haven't seen the Friday the 13th films, especially the first one, might be surprised to learn that it's not actually Jason. Big shock. It's Ned. Ned's the killer. I'm gonna leave it like that. Yeah.
She's great, isn't she? Like, she's in it for the last 20 minutes, so she's not in it very much, but she is fantastic. And as far as female killers, there's a bunch of female killers in slasher movies, and she's probably still one of my favourites. Although I do like the killer in To All a Good Night, and Happy Birthday to Me has a really good one as well. I'm not spoiling it.
I'm sure it was probably on that Friday the 13th documentary or some extras I've seen over the years. Adrienne King used to say in her interviews that when it came to Betsy Palmer doing the slap bit, that she just went for it. There was no, holding back. It was just
hang on.
That's how for her it was acting before you start having like health and safety things. She do things carefully and all that kind of thing. So she just goes for it.
Yeah, she did theatre or something, didn't she? Where they actually do have to hit people, and she was just hitting them, and they're like, no, you don't actually have to do that. You just got to pretend to. And she's like, oh, sorry.
It's a good job she did that, not on the machete bit.
Oh God, let's call the insurance people.
So you do kind of think, like, from that part when she's fighting with Alice and stuff, how could she actually kill those people the way that she did? And I'm not sure if it's just my imagination from watching the film and stuff, but don't you see like a figure and stuff in the woods sometimes before these people get killed? And it does not look like a woman.
No, it's a cheat, isn't it? I think
I don't know what you mean. Later on we'll see hairy palms, but that's clearly a woman.
So you do kind of think to yourself when it comes out, you're like, yeah, but you didn't really, but that is what you're led to believe, that she is the one that did that, and you're like, okay, fine, go along with it.
Grown men to the door.
Yeah, but then she kind of then has a slap fight with Alice, and she knocks her out several times, doesn't she? And then gets away, runs and hides, and then she comes and finds her again.
Yeah. I always had that argument with my parents, and I usually stuck up for Friday the 13th. Said, "Oh yeah, Alice is because with Alice, all the others she caught by surprise. Yeah, but how did she get the bloke up pinned to the door? She's just really strong.
Yeah,
it's the sweater.
Yeah. After all them killing, she's a little bit tired.
Yeah.
When it gets to Alice, she's kind of a bit exhausted from all the other killings.
It's another cheat. It's the kind of cheat that Hitchcock used to do quite a lot. And there's scenes in Psycho, or there's one particular image in Psycho where it's clearly not, Norman Bates. But it's one of those things. She's just so good there. The fight's really good.
Yeah, but by the end of it, you're with it. You're with it. You're like, okay, yeah, it was definitely her.
Yeah. And Adrienne King, I always thought was really quite likable. She does a good job in this movie. I think she's got quite a tough act to follow with like Jamie Lee and everything, but I think she's really good. Mm-hmm. And she gets a bit short shrift in the next one. And what about decapitation? Where would you put the decapitation in the annals?
In the kills? Yeah, I'd say that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
When you say where would you put it, what do you mean? Like, if you do a top kills for this specific film, or?
Well, generally, to me, from memory, in the 80s, it was always like it got the David Warner Memorial Award for best or second best decapitation after The Omen, and it was that bit that, even though I think it's partly in slow mo anyway, but that's that bit that you'd freeze frame at home on your video player from this movie, probably the main bit actually, just to see if you could see where the fakery was. But I always thought it was one of the top 5 decapitations, definitely top 3 in that period.
Well, I was going to say, I think the slow-mo bit helps for that. Adds a bit more to it.
And you see her shocked face, don't you? And her fists are, she's really angry about being beheaded.
Yes. So, like you would be, Stephen. I imagine you would be.
Yeah.
She said, damn kids.
Well, she was going to say that, but she had her head chopped off.
Would have got away with it.
Yeah. As Stephen just mentioned then, Adrienne King was the character, well, the actress who survived this one. So we're now going to jump into our main talking points, which is... all the sequels to the Friday the 13th film. So this is every single one, including Freddy vs. Jason. And this will be interesting to see how this turns out. The remake for Friday the 13th. Be interesting to see what people say on that one. So, Stephen, once again,
Hey.
we'll come to you first because you mentioned Adrienne King. So we're going to come to you first. So this is 1981, Friday the 13th. Part 2, directed by Steve Miner, who would go on to do some others, but at this moment we're currently talking about Part 2. So this begins with, oddly, outside of all the other Friday the 13th films, it starts with, a street scene, which is reminiscent of something from like Halloween or something like that. So you're like, oh, yeah. They're doing something different, which they did until obviously a bit later on. So. But yes, it goes off there, and you get to see Adrienne King again making. I don't know what she's actually making. She's making something on her stove, isn't she?
Yes, and Jason kindly picks the thing off the boil at the end, doesn't he? Which I think is a nice touch, just in case there was a problem later on.
When you killed somebody, you don't want the house to burn down as well.
Oh, while I'm here.
Maybe he had a drink. Maybe you put the telly on while we was there. We don't know. Well, it was a long walk from Camp Crystal Lake to go see her. Does it say? Does it say where she actually is? I don't think it does.
No, it's suburbia, isn't it? It's somewhere. Mm. It's the only time I think Jason decides that he's going to go kind of some way out of his way, and I'm guessing this is already meant to be a few years later. Oh no, it's later. It goes to this is quite soon after the event, isn't it? And then it switches to 5 years later when it goes to the new characters. It's really, I really like the bit where it's him stepping in the puddle and then the kids doing Itsy Bitsy Spider. That's genuinely creepy. Perhaps because it is unexpected. But yeah, he's trekked out. And I suppose maybe it's his only time he goes out because it's an exceptional thing. He's got to now avenge his mum's death, who'd been avenging his death, which didn't happen in the first place. And
do your fact checks, woman.
Yeah, turns out your murder spree was pointless. But it's mainly an excuse for what a lot of the slasher sequels did at the time, which was to save money, a kind of 5-minute highlights reel from the previous one, which was only last year in case people had forgotten it. So it's flashback-orama, and it's probably one of the longest pre-title sequences in this kind of cycle. But it is that thing of, Adrienne King probably doesn't really want to come back, but she's back for long enough to do this sequence. Let's kill her off. And,
I don't know whether she wanted to come back for this one or not, or whether it was this kind of, like a lot of these things. But like, Jamie Lee Curtis with Halloween and we made loads of money. We need to write a sequel. Okay, right. You're going to be in a hospital for the majority of the film in Halloween 2.
Catatonic.
Yeah. So in this case, it was Adrienne King was the surviving actress of obviously the first Friday the 13th film. So it was kind of, well, we would bring you in, but was it a case of just bringing her in because of that, or do you think maybe they might have had something longer for her potentially? Maybe she ends up going back to the camp or something, becomes the Ralph type character potentially.
Should be interesting, yeah. But I quite like the attention to detail. Like actually, it's kind of switched on enough to include a little glimpse that she's got her art on the bed or something. So it remembers that little detail of her character in the first one. So you think, okay, so she's talking on the phone to her mum, I think it is. And it's a few of the movies did it. I know Elm Street 4 and Halloween 5 brought back the survivors of the previous movie and then kills them off in the first kind of half an hour or so. So it's maybe it's a good bit of misdirection for people expecting to see the next adventures of Jeff from part 3. This does have the most outrageously hurled in cat scare probably in any of the Friday movies though, right? What the hell was what? Who threw that thing?
But I actually quite like the throwing people off the scent kind of thing with this one. Starting off, you've seen the survivor from the first film. You're like, we're gonna follow this. We're gonna see where she goes from now, how she evolved. Maybe it's gonna be a bit like, Jamie Lee Curtis's character from Halloween 2. Is it gonna be a bit like that? But no, we're doing something completely different. So, as Stephen previously mentioned, we jump about 5 years on from that, and we head towards Camp Crystal Lake, the place where things are just fun all the time. So, who is our favourite character in this? Is it Ned? Is it Ned the prankster? Gangly Ned.
Oh no, definitely not.
The ginger, the lanky guy.
Yeah,
He's got jokes that go nowhere. The joke about bears wiping their asses with rabbits. I didn't get it. What was that about? Beethoven's final movement. What? I'm sure he's in other movies, isn't he? That guy. He turns up in an X-Files episode, but I think he's in Christine or something around that time. I never looked it up.
Yeah, because he never died in part 2, did he? But he did die a nasty death in Christine.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. He's a very distinctive looking guy. And in X-Files, it was the 90s, and it's kind of just a slightly older version of him in this, really. He's a really strange guy. But clearly, he should have died in this, not some of the others. This is the one, I don't know if you'll agree, this is the one that's got the most attractive lineup, I think.
Absolutely. There's some lovely people in this.
Oh, Scott, Terry...
Can I say Ned?
Vicky's really pretty. Ned's, yes, not Ned, it's something else.
It's Ted. It's Ted.
Oh, Ted.
Ted. Oh, what a mistake I had to make.
And Jed in the next one.
Yeah. so
nothing else. It's Ted.
In this one, this is where we get the stereotypical bits that a lot of slasher films tend to follow in the future, which is you have a bunch of people gathered around a campfire where you have the one person telling you the creepy stories of what's in the forest or in the area itself, and this is where we get the sort of Jason's origin story, which is when we get Ted, not Ned. We get Ted,
brother.
The dickhead prankster jumps out with a mask on. I think that's what he does. It's like a bear mask or something, or Bigfoot mask. So yes, and of course he scares a bunch of people up who, oh no, you must come stay with me now because you're so scared. Come on, I'm not going to take your knickers off. Come on.
Well, he tries.
He tries. He does try. He's very trying.
There's a bunch of people in this where they don't really figure in the story at all. There's like a bunch of other characters hanging around that don't get killed like him, but they head off to the local club or they just vanish. So it feels a bit more like a real camp because you're not just seeing 6 people, all of which, except for one, are going to be killed. It's like, oh, there's other people here too. And Jason doesn't have time for all of them. So, I quite like that.
I think this is the first one in the series that actually does something that I really, really like. It's the introduction of animals, and they have the dog, Muffin.
Muffin, yes.
And you think to yourself for ages, because in a previous story they walk in the woods and they find a dead dog, and you think, oh no, it's Muffin, because the stupid owner like loses Muffin straight away. And she is like the worst dog owner in the world, isn't she? She just flounces around and kind of forgets that she has this dog with her, and then it runs off, and then she goes to look for him again. And then someone kind of says to her, oh, do you want to come and have some cocktails or something? And she instantly like, yeah, screw the dog, I'm going to drink. So she goes and has her drinks, doesn't she? And then later on in the night, she suddenly remembers, oh, yeah, I had a dog that I was looking for. So she wanders off towards the lake and just kind of whispers, Muffin, like once, looks at the lake and goes, oh, I'm just going to go for a swim, strips off and goes for a swim, forgetting completely about the dog once again.
Yeah, she goes skinny dipping like the girls in Zombie Lake, which is one of Sarah's favourite songs. Just better bring that up again, just for the sake of it. So, yes, she goes skinny dipping in the middle of the night, because I'm sure the water's going to be lovely, nice and warm, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely, that time of night when you're supposed to be looking for your dog.
But again, as Stephen mentioned a bit earlier, the influences of Bay of Blood are all over this scene.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? Yeah, I don't think they ever denied it. I think there was different opinions over time, but I think in the end they accepted that Bay of Blood was a big influence, as were a whole bunch of 70s things, and even the first one was influenced by Black Christmas and other stuff from the 70s. But yeah, the skinny dip was a key kind of slasher movie moment, and I think it's the only nudity in this film. Actually, I don't think anybody else. It's pretty chaste as well, apart from that swimming sequence. Although there is probably more than any of the others. Loads of close-ups of butts in like short shorts and introductions of characters just from their bottom.
Yeah,
to be a trend.
Yes, because there's the stabbing of the couple in the bed, isn't there?
Yes, yeah, which would have been a great effect. That was one of the biggest cuts from the movie. The movie is pretty bloodless, really, and that would have been a great sequence. Which is another reason you have to see Bay of Blood, because that has the proper gory version of that scene.
Yeah, people by being speared is what happens. He gets penetrated by a spear, both of them.
And it's at the point of orgasm, isn't it, from memory?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Good timing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or bad, depending on your point of view.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. We've all been there. Yeah. That's a great sequence, actually.
There is a couple of genuine scares in this one that actually made me jump.
Yes.
The rest of them not so much, but there's definitely a couple of them that proper got me. I think it was Jason coming through the window.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
At the very end,
that definitely got me. Yeah, towards the end.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
And then when Vicky goes into the bedroom looking for people, and then she finds that it's Jason in the bed and not her friends. That scared me as well. That made me jump.
That's a really creepy scene, the bit with Vicky, because you don't see much, but she's kind of cowering and she's cornered, isn't she? And you see the knife coming towards her and she's genuinely terrified. Yeah, this is maybe the scariest one.
Yeah, definitely.
You know that scene where Amy Steele, who's really good, by the way. She's suddenly she kind of gradually realizes that there's someone else in the room. Paul's there, but she gets the sense that someone else is there, and the camera kind of pans across. You realise Jason's there, and that's the first time you see a proper close-up of his sack face mask thing. Sack face, they called him. So that used to freak me out. That's like you said, there's not many scary things about the Friday movies, but this one probably has most of them. So there was more of a sense that maybe they were going for that kind of thing this time.
I was just thinking about Adrienne King. Wasn't the story about her not wanting to be in this one fully because she had a stalker at the time?
Yes.
Yeah, that rings a bell, yeah.
And I think she just basically said she wanted to have a short time on the set or something because of this guy or whatever it was. But yeah,
I like that she chose to be in a scene where she stalked and killed at a time when she had a stalker.
Yeah, that's creepy. Yeah, that's quite brave, actually.
Yeah.
So just easily not do it.
In this one, of course, in the first Friday the 13th, we have Jason, just a young boy paddling along. His mum's being the killer. In this one, we have we do actually have Jason in this one, but it just seems to be being a rip-off of the guy in the town that dreaded sundown, because he's wearing a burlap sack on his head.
Yeah.
So you have a
He's
lot
quite skinny as well, isn't he? He's not been eating too well in this one, which is very concerning.
Yeah. So what do you think about the burlap sack? Do you find that, obviously later on he gets his hockey mask, which is the iconic hockey mask, but did you find the burlap sack intimidating or anything?
Yeah, I really like the burlap sack.
Yeah, same. I think it's really creepy, especially with its one eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great.
I thought that's
really
good.
effective.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just not quite as iconic as the hockey mask, are they? So I'm kind of glad they went along the lines of swapping it.
Yes.
So we've got to that point now where, of course, Jason's appeared. He's starting to kill off people. But who's the person who's going to take him on this time, Stephen?
Oh, she's one of my favourites. Amy Steele with the really charmingly knackered rubbish car, which is set up early on. You just know you wait for the moment where now she's going to get away. Now she's going to try and get away in the car. It's not going to work because we know it's crap. We know it's rubbish. She hasn't had it serviced in 10 years. So yeah, Amy Steele is really lovely in this. Although I have to say, I don't know if you two agree with this, but her boyfriend Paul is a bit of a dick, really, isn't he? From the very start.
Yeah.
I don't like Paul very much. I like everybody else. Like Mark's charming.
Oh, love Mark.
He's beautiful. Yeah,
He is.
Vicky's really sweet. Oh, flirty Vicky, and Terry's quite funny. Scott's got those extraordinary eyes. Oh my god! But Paul is a dick.
Yeah, he
No
is.
offense to Paul.
He has a good death, though.
Yes, he does actually. Yes,
His little eye squeezed out.
I was going to say that's actually my favourite kill in this one. Was that one? So I guess before we go a bit further on then into what happens in this one, do you want to mention what your favourite kill is then, you two, in this one?
Oh, I certainly can.
Go ahead.
I will. It's got to be the one that gets repeated an awful lot in most of the recaps. It's Mark's death in the wheelchair when he goes backwards down the stairs.
Spectacular.
It's great. And then it's the eyeball one. That's a good one. There are so many good ones in this one, though.
Yes, up the ante. That's what you're supposed to do in sequels.
Absolutely, yeah. What about you, Stephen?
Oh, actually, I think even though it's probably the least gory of the list of favourite kills when you look back, I think it is the killing of Vicky, because it is quite frightening and brutal. Like you said, she's found Jason in the bed, and then she's cornered into like a closet or something, and she's already wounded. That's got some real terror in it. So, and she's a likable character, which makes a big difference. Although Mark, of course, that's a great kill too that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Very worthy of a part in the show reel that they keep bringing up, as you said, in later movies.
Absolutely.
Let's have it again.
Yeah.
This time in extra slow mo.
They spent loads of money on that stuff thing, so might as well get your bang for your buck from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Get your money's worth. I think the saddest kill in that has to be the first one. Poor old crazy Ralph.
Yes, that's
I was wondering when somebody was going to bring up Ralph.
He made it all the way through. Yes, exactly. As long as he could do his catchphrase. He made it all the way through the first one to get to the second one to do the similar thing, and then peeping on some people, he ends up getting killed.
Yeah, he's
Poor
like
old
Adrian
Ralph.
King, isn't he? He's back. You think, oh, he's going to stick around, and he doesn't.
Yes.
And it's all over.
Sad times.
It is a shame.
So
For decades, and finally, shocking. It's, he looks the same, but is it me or does Betsy Palmer, when she appears in the new scenes they obviously shot for the very end, she got a new haircut?
I don't know what you're talking about, Stephen.
That wasn't the same Mrs. Boyce. She's had a perm.
They picked up her head, stuck it back on, gave her a perm, and said, "Right, off you go. You've got to do this bit."
Yeah. Dear Steve Miner, the continuity in your film is shocking. It's too late to complain.
So,
Rubbish.
Of course, we've mentioned that Jason turns up now. He's gone round and started offing off people. But then we have Amy Steele's character. What does she do you two to trick Jason?
Oh, what does she do to Jason?
Oh, she puts a mangy old sweater on.
Oh, yes, of course. And she finds his mum's decapitated hen in a little shrine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really eerie, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then puts on the old jumper and pretends to be his mum.
Yeah.
You did well, Jason. Well done, son, kind of thing.
Yeah, that was really cool. She was definitely my favourite, one of my favourite final girls of the whole series. I think she was pretty damn good.
She's great. She kicks him in the balls, doesn't she? Although, another big talking point, which when I rewatched it is a bit ridiculous now, but we used to have a little argument at home with my parents, probably, and my sister or whoever, about the bit where she hides under the bed, and which is a really suspenseful moment, and you spend ages thinking, when's Jason going to pop up? And you see like the urine on the floor, and there used to be this argument, is that the rat or is it her? But I assumed it was her, right?
I reckon it's her.
I always thought it was her.
Yeah, definitely her. I think like hiding from a killer and then having a rat run like over your face would probably make you pee yourself.
Well, I like to think it was her anyway, because that's a lot of pee, and that rat.
That's a scared rat.
That hasn't got the biggest bladder in the world, so.
But that's a great scene.
It is, yeah.
Or not. And the bit where he's on top of the car with the pitchfork. There's some really good suspense in this one. I think I might have to adjust my top 12. But yeah, that's. I'm glad it wasn't the rat. I'm just going to phone my parents. Bear with me.
Yeah.
It's not the rat.
Told ya.
Massive rats in Norfolk.
What happens to Jason in this one? Because Stephen said he gets his nuts kicked in slightly.
Yeah, take that, Jason.
So what happens
to
him?
That, not Jason from Take That. That's Jason Orange.
Yes. Anybody want to fill in what happens to Jason in this one?
Oh, not a lot really. Doesn't he just get a machete in the shoulder instead of being decapitated? He just gets a slight cut.
He gets a cut, and he's wounded for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, Amy Steele is the strong, viral character in this one. But but Jason, being Jason, you just can't keep him down. He can't keep a good man down sometimes, because of course he comes back in Friday the 13th Part 3, which was another year later, 1982, again directed by Steve Miner, which I think was a wise choice to kind of keep the same director, so he had a kind of decent flow if he was going to copy it a little bit. So in this one, as I'm sure many people know, this is the one where Jason gets his mask, and it has the most terrible 3D in it. It's that 80s 3D, which is just poke something at the screen and hope for the best.
Brilliant. I like that yo-yo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the yo-yo.
Everything's coming at you, isn't it?
The yo-yo and the harpoon scene, which is clearly on a bit of string to line it up with the camera lens.
Yeah. Juggling.
But yes, this is with the character who has the mask, which Jason takes later on. And he's a bit of a dick, isn't he, as well, this guy? It seems to be a bit of a recurring thing. You have to have at least one dickhead in the Friday the 13th films. So this one, it is... Oh, what was his name, actually?
Shelley,
yes, of course it was. Of course it was Shelley. Yes. So...
That manly name, Shelley.
Yes, that manly name, Shelley.
And it's not enough that he's a dick. He's a kind of self-pitying dick, isn't he, as well? Oh, they're off skinny dipping and I'm not skinny enough. Well, stop eating. Shut up. Stop doing the stupid pranks. No one likes you because of the stupid pranks. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to get carried away.
So, in this one, Jason seems to have got over his slight wound into his shoulder from the machete. And put on some weight. He's worked out. He's it's been good recovery. You know, he's got injured. He got his arm sorted. He's starting to work out. So now he's a bit buffer in this one. So, and of course he's got some new clothes as well, because why not?
Haircut.
And haircut. And he, of course, because this is Jason's area, he's staying in Camp Crystal Lake, or at least in a cabin at Camp Crystal Lake, which, it's been a couple of years now. Maybe it's time to shut down the camp. But no, of course, we have a bunch of people turning up on a vacation to the camp because it's the hot spot everybody wants to come to. Because why not? Because you want to be killed, maybe?
Yeah, mental. Oh, but firstly, you've got the ridiculous old couple, or what the Friday the 13th movie's version of an old couple is, which means they're both called Edna and Harold, and the wife is this horrible, shrill, nagging person with hair curlers.
Yep.
Clearly played by someone young, right? Pretending to be old. That's from looking at the HD version of the film. Yeah. Is this the one with them? I find this is the one with the most unlikable characters after part 2, actually. They're just an awful bunch of people, especially the annoying pregnant couple. Oh yeah. And Shelley. They're horrible. The aging hippies, the 50-year-old hippies that are tagging along with these teenagers, with the enormous bogs, like something out of the Scooby-Doo episode they never aired. Yeah. They're all right, although terrible actors. Mm-hmm. The best character in this is the old bloke in the road who's kind of got the crazy Ralph version. Oh, yes. Carrying an eyeball for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
That's because he sees everything. He sees what's going on.
Yes. Look upon this omen.
And then you have the weird, crazy people that they bump into at the store.
Oh, the comedy bikers.
Yeah, the bikers, that's it.
Who go around stealing their fuel from their cars later on.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just go and hang out in the barn.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, everybody goes to the barn. Everybody's going to the barn.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same barn from Arachnophobia with all the spiders in it. It's not that one.
I wish it was.
But
this is the series' first ethnic characters, isn't it? Because it's got the black guy and it's got the Hispanic girl with the nagging mum. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and this is
stereotypes here.
Richard Brooker as Jason this time, doing Richard Brooker things, because everybody has their own favourite person who played Jason Voorhees, which I'm sure we'll pick one at the very end of this. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we've now become a bit formulaic with the Friday the 13th films, which is going to happen. It happens with all movies. I can't think of any series of films that don't have a certain formula that they stick to eventually. And yes, we have another character who gets killed, similar to Kevin Bacon's character. We have another impaling, because you can never have enough impalings.
Oh no.
And isn't this one in widescreen this time?
Yeah, it's the only one in widescreen, which I think was kind of part of the 3D process. I think they had to do it in widescreen for some boring technical reason, but yeah. But the 3D was a big selling point. It was the big year for 3D. Amityville 3 was out the same year. Jaws 3D.
Amityville 3 was fantastic. I say fantastic in a sarcastic way.
Jaws 3 has that They're just the funniest. They're much worse than this. Jaws 3 is terrible. Amityville 3 is actually probably not that bad, but
no, the film's not bad, but that terrible 3D fly.
This has the best use for 3D, and it should only ever be used for this, because 3D, especially the 3D in recent years, is just rubbish. Just makes everything dark and weird. But this has a joint literally being passed into the audience, which I think is the best gag in the whole series, which is probably the whole reason they want to do it in 3D, I guess.
Well, I imagine it did make a difference in the cinema at the time. It's a gimmick thing. Gimmicks been in cinemas for years, and they still are. So, yeah. So, what happens next? Because nobody's really mentioned that Jason turns up, other than the fact that he ends up getting his iconic hockey mask.
Oh yeah, from Shelley. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even remember how he comes about just turning up, but it just seems to me that he just kind of turns up and just starts killing people as he does.
Jason, he was already there. He was already at the camp, because remember he's been working out, recovering.
Of course.
He's got over his drinking habit, and
just waiting for people to turn up.
But waiting for people to turn up. So he's having a nice siesta, and then these ruckus kids turn up with their loud music and their drugs and their sex. So of course he's a bit miffed. He wants to go around killing people, but he wants a new look. So of course he takes Shelley's hockey mask, which Yeah, which is probably a wise decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I quite like the way they did that as well, because all of a sudden you see Shelley with his hockey mask and you're like, then he disappears,
Yeah.
and then Jason later turns up with the mask and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now this is where this came from. I quite like the way they did that rather than just stick it on him.
Yeah, that's true, which they could have done. Yeah,
see a kind of way he's just kind of gone, oh, I want that, and I'll take it. Because then Shelley then turns up later, not quite dead, does he? He's like mortally wounded, but then manages to... He
and
gets
no one
away.
believes him.
No.
Yeah. Why doesn't Jason take Shelley's wetsuit? Because it would have been really useful for all the kind of underwater stuff that Jason does in this one and the next one. Although I guess it wouldn't fit because Shelley's so damn big. There is some attempt at... Oh, sorry, yes.
Carry on. There is some attempt at what?
Continuity, because, I guess Jason, because you see, like, the news reports about the survivors of the previous one.
Yeah.
And he's at the general store at the start with Edna and Harold, who I guess are nearby. He's gone there to probably get some food as well. So there is sort of some continuity there. You get the sense that, they're wrapping up the bit from Amy Steele's chapter. And, there's also the terrible soap opera backstory of where... Chris is the heroine of this one, and she's had some previous encounter with Jason in the woods.
Dana
Kimmel,
who is terrible. Just awful. The least likable heroine of all, and they're usually really good. But Dana Kimmel's soap opera acting, and she's terrible in Sweet 16 as well. Is I think possibly the worst acting in this not very well acted movie.
Yeah, no, it's not good, is it?
Do you know,
but it does have some good deaths.
I was going to mention, you mentioned Shelley. I don't know why, but every time I watch this one or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one, I always have the same thing that happens. It goes, this Franklin guy looks like Shelley, or Shelley looks like Franklin.
Yeah.
The bigger guys with frizzy curly hair.
Yeah.
The only difference is that Shelley can walk and Franklin can't. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Franklin's really unlikable in
exactly.
Chainsaw, isn't he?
So he's like Shelley.
The same scenario. Yeah, you can't wait for Franklin to die in Chainsaw. It is kind of the same here. So yeah, there's a great cameo from Fangoria magazine where they're literally reading the Tom Savini article or flipping past it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's just sitting there flicking through it, and then just up in the rafters is Andy folded up into the roof.
Yes, which is
cool.
great. That's my favourite death.
That's my favourite death as well. That's the only one I've got written in there. I think the rest is just people getting impaled on various farm implements, isn't it? But
I was
going
to say the one I like is the flare gun.
Oh yeah, that's very good actually. That's really well done.
Oh, that's the kids in the car, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've forgotten about that bit. Yeah,
that's the one I like.
One. Yeah, no, that is good. And they are awful as well. They're horrible. Horrible people.
So, as we mentioned earlier, that at this point, as far as we know, Jason is still basically a human character. He's not supernatural, though he has seemed to have gone to the gym somewhere on the line. And yeah, so it's not too much later where he's now got his hockey mask and we do see his face, as we do most of the time in the Friday the 13th films. But how does Jason get dispatched in this one? I mean, not very well, obviously, because he comes back in lots more sequels, but
it's quite cool though. He gets hung and thrown out the window for starters.
Yes, from the barn, which of course we know is going to be a plot point because we have the guy.
Everybody's in there.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is what I do on a farm all the time. I pick up bales and I throw them off. So yeah, I know what I'm doing.
And then he gets he gets the machete in his head, doesn't he? Which then cuts the mask.
Yeah.
Yes, which becomes a good continuity point, doesn't it? Later on in many chapters.
Oh yes.
So you just see him lying there in the barn, thinking that he's dead, as the police turn up and collect everyone else up and send Chris like off in the back of the car going absolutely crazy.
Yes, Dana Kimmel doing her going crazy Bart.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then of course the police turn up from thinking, well, glad that's over. This isn't gonna happen ever again, is it? No. Let's just close the cap down. It would never happen.
Do you see Jason twitch at the end, or am I just imagining that?
I think it's a long shot, isn't it? It's a lingering shot. I think he's just lying there, yeah. But you kind of imagine that he probably is a bit twitchy. Hey, did you ever see? It's probably in the documentary actually. Did you see the image of the original ending that they shot where Chris gets a head cut off?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's in the novelization. It's how the book ends as well, which would have been great.
Yeah.
But instead they junked it. I think it was a dream sequence, but they junked it for the really rubbish recreation of Mrs. Voorhees coming out of the lake with her head back on, which is it's just terrible. They couldn't think of anything better.
Well, they've got to this point where Jason's now been, he's in the first one. Was he dead? Is he not dead? That thing happened. Second one, he got kicked in the nuts and he got a machete in his shoulder. This one, he got a machete in his head and he got hugged. So I'm pretty sure he's probably dead this time. But
say what?
You know what? No, it wasn't 1983. It was 1984. It was 2 years later Jason's back. So of course he's had plenty of time to rehabilitate now. Or has he? Because it's now Friday the 13th, the not so much final chapter, which is directed by Joseph Zito, which I don't believe he's done a lot, really.
He did the Prowler, man. The Prowler's great.
Oh yeah, other than that, but I mean outside of that.
Oh, Missing in Action, one of those. Oh. Red Scorpion, that's the other one.
So, go on, Stephen, as you mentioned, the Prowler.
Yeah, the Prowler is one of the best slasher movies of the 80s. And Joseph Zito, I think, does bring something good to this one. This is the one which has got all the cool kind of Steadicam work, so it's a nice-looking movie. It looks like maybe they spent a bit more money on it because it's got a helicopter in it, which is always a sign of a big budget. They
spent more money on this one because it's the final chapter. It's a good way of getting you chuck as much as you can, thinking it's going to be the end, which is not.
Yeah, they went all out with this one. They got Tom Savini back.
Yeah.
Who and some, I think he only worked on certain of the effects, like there's some other guys did the others, but to kill Jason effectively because he sort of played a part in creating him. This is the one with the really fabulous montage at the start, which is the proper previously on Friday the 13th greatest hits. It's the one where the words "the final chapter" come out of the screen and make the mask explode in the latest spin on the title sequence, and it is just a formula as usual, but I think there's more going on in this one. And it does have, of course, a more likeable bunch of characters than the awful bunch in Part 3, who all deserve to die. And this is a proper good Jason film, I think, this one. Maybe doesn't hold up as well as I used to rank this really, really high in my favourites list, and maybe it doesn't hold up as well as some that are still to come in the series, but it's good fun. And it's a lot more gory than the previous two, so they got away with a bit more gore, probably because it was the final chapter, and they were like, yeah, fuck it, let's just let it all in this time, and we'll cut the next one if they make another one.
So, the thing that I was trying to remember what Joseph said, she said Missing in Action. Another Chuck Norris thing he did was Invasion USA.
Oh, the terrorist one. That's really fun, yeah.
So, they made the right choice to bring him on for this, to do... which, as the title suggests, was at the time potentially going to be the final chapter. But as we know, that usually just entitles the fact that, people are going to go see it and go, well, it's going to be the last one, so I'll go to cinema to say I've seen the last one. So it gets that kind of like cinema boost, a bit like the new Halloween film, not the ones they're making now, but the new one where they went, well, this is the end. This is the end of it now, so we're gonna bring everybody back. We're gonna ignore everything that happened before, and this is the last one. But of course, it made loads of money, so of course they're doing 2 more.
It's a bit dishonest, isn't it? Really, I mean,
yeah. But it was bound to happen. So again, we get a bit of a montage again before the titles come up on the screen with all the thing that's happened before. And in the towards the end of the third one, we see that as Jason's on the floor, the morticians are turned up, taken to the morgue, which is where he wakes up because he wasn't dead. He wasn't dead. He was just slightly unconscious for being hung and having a machete in his head. So he, of course, he has nothing else to do. So he hitches a ride somehow. I think that's what he does anyway, and ends up back at Camp Crystal Lake because he has nowhere else to go. Home is home, and Camp Crystal Lake is that. And we get to see yet again. Sorry, Sarah, but they're back again. It's those skinny dipping teens. They're back again.
Yeah.
But this time we have, I was just gonna say a young girl, but I guess she's not really. But she's having a late night bike ride down to the camp, isn't she? Is that what she's doing? Something like that. Where she comes across the two twins.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is the Playboy twin. Yeah, they're in this, aren't they? This is the introduction of Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah, Corey Feldman.
Who nobody really wanted to see in the next two, but turns up anyway. Yeah, Corey Feldman's in this. Same year as Gremlins. And he was already on crack. And this is the start of, I think this is the first of 3 in a row where there's some kind of child protagonist. In part 5, there is a more likable character, and in part 6, there's the little blonde girl that keeps popping up and is spooked by Jason. But in this, it's Tommy Jarvis, who is kind of a version of Tom Savini as a young boy, because he has all these cool creations and monster kits and stuff in his bedroom. So he's destined not to die because he's a child, but he's destined to be the one that takes on Jason in a rather good big finale. But this is one with I think a more likable bunch of characters, including Crispin Glover.
Yeah,
who is the best thing since sliced bread.
Crispin Glover, who never ever gets invited to Back to the Future groups when they bring all the cast together, because he
fell out, didn't he?
Yeah, he did star in the Back to the Future films, but yeah, didn't get along with them very well. But hey, he did do this, and what a dance! What a dance he made!
Spectacular,
mesmerizing.
He's fantastic in this, and he's quite fanciable as well. He's just he's an unlucky chap, and he's got that terrible best friend that insults him all the time.
He's right. He's got Willard back.
He's got what?
He's got Willard again.
Yes,
his best friend.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Oh, him and Willard. Yeah. And he actually gets lucky with one of the twins, although, of course, he's killed soon after in the series tradition. But Crispin Glover is one of the ones that lights this one up, I think. Although they're quite a fun bunch generally.
I don't know if you, Evie, noticed, but the music that they're playing, did you know that they dance into completely different music?
Oh, sure.
You could kind of tell.
Yeah, the music that they were using was something they put on because they were still trying to get the music to... I can't remember what the song is now, but they're trying to get music rights to one certain song. And they thought, well, the studio are doing this film. They've got a record company, so why wouldn't we get the rights? So they continued using it for that film. So, of course, they're dancing along to it. But they didn't get the rights in the end, so of course you get different music, which makes their dancing even more bizarre.
I thought he missed a beat.
And in this one, we have the probably the most unlikable, I would have thought, or maybe not unlikable, a bit straight compared to all the other female heroines you've had in the previous ones. This is Kimberly Beck is the survivor-esque character in this one.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot to do, really, does she?
No, not really.
But she's not very good. She's
a bit bland compared to, let's say, Amy Steele or Adrienne King's characters. But, as Steve mentioned, she has a wonderful perm, which I'm sure is probably why Jason was trying to get her and trying to just give her a haircut. That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
She was Trish. That was her name.
Trish. Yeah, no one really remembers her. She's one of those interchangeable ones. And
Trish the dish.
Yeah, and she's not even the dish, is she? There's a better actress in this. I think it's Julia Ronson, who's also in From Memory. I haven't checked this. I think she's in Weird Science as well. She's the one that gets killed in the canoe on the lake from underneath, like Jason does. And she's really fun. She did a few 80s comedies around the same time, and she's actually she would have been a better choice, I think. Although because her character is a bit more on the slutty side of things, then they went for the boring one who lives with her mum, has that
her mum, that's Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes, Mrs. Jarvis to us.
Mrs. Jarvis, because I'm sure her first name doesn't get mentioned throughout the film.
Mrs.
Yes, Mrs.
Yeah,
Mrs.
just
Mrs. Dot Jarvis. That is her name. So
it's interesting that she dies off screen, isn't it? It's almost like they thought it would be too cruel to kill off her mum on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know she's going to die. She hasn't got a first name.
Yeah, Mrs.
Like, it's either you're going to die because you haven't got a full name, so you ain't got a first or last name. In her case, she's only got a last name. So she was destined to die. So, as you mentioned earlier, Crispin Glover is the sort of gimpy teen with the brilliant dance that I'm sure everybody loves to reenact at Friday the 13th conventions.
Oh, that's so great. It's got great hair as well.
But in this one, we get some cool kills. The kills are up once again, as they always are in any of the Friday the 13th films. So, in this one, you get a bit of sort of, I guess, stuff you don't really see. It's more sort of like killer in the shadows type thing. You know, it's Jason, but there's a lot of kills in the shadows. But what was your favourite one? Because I can't think of what my favourite one at the moment is, but the bit I always like is the fact that he throws the bodies through the windows. It's like, here's your friends. You missed them, but here they're back.
I think there was a good shower kill in this one as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's a nice twist on thing because it's the bloke in the shower that gets kind of watched and killed, and it's Peter Barton who was the hunk in Hell Night as well. He kind of gets he's got a really kind of impressive, not Bruce Campbell level impressive, but he's got a really impressive jawline, and that's obviously irrelevant, but he gets his face crushed into the wall basically. And it's really gruesome because it's got crunching sounds, popping crunching sounds. Nasty,
and I quite like the way like at the beginning when he kills the doctor. He twists his head round. That's pretty cool.
That's nasty as well. Yeah.
Yes, that's the. Yeah, I was trying to remember which one. It's this one.
Like one right at the start.
Yeah. So
some really good deaths.
Stephen, I believe you've probably watched them on the recent Blu-ray releases of these films.
Yeah, I watched the first 8 from the most recent Blu-ray release. Yeah.
So, does the 4th film have the alternate scene that was basically used for TV? There's a scene where there's a conversation between Sarah and her boyfriend. It's only a brief scene, but it's basically just to bring up the running time for the TV. So obviously they cut things out for the TV, but then they still needed the running time, so they had this extra little bit scene. Is that on the discs?
Yeah, there's a few things that's on there. That's that's kind of filler, isn't it? Like you said.
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff actually. There's more of Tommy's creatures and stuff. There's more of him like using a guillotine and little things around his bedroom because he kind of befriends the character of Rob in part 4, the guy that's looking for, or his sister. I think Rob's sister is Sandra from part 2. So Rob's around looking for Jason, and he befriends Tommy. So there's more of that. There's a bit more. There's a few kind of rough cuts of gorier scenes. I think a lot of gore made it into this movie compared to the other 2 before it, but you do get bloodier versions of the bit on the canoe with Julia Ronson's character, and a couple of the other kills, including the one that Sarah mentioned, are a bit more lingery. But they actually probably work better in the way it's cut in the film because it does, like you said, have a nice mixture of shadowy kills where it's all about suggestion and those quick shots of sharp, pointy things going up people's nostrils. So the Blu-rays are really worth getting. They you would think that Crystal Lake Memories, the awesome documentary, would have kind of been everything you have to watch, but the Blu-rays have got some cool extra stuff as well, so it's good having all of it if you're a fan of the movies.
Yes. So, as you mentioned, Rob there, which is the sort of the hunky guy that Trish falls for. He's like, oh my God, you're here. I don't know you really, but it's literally he turns up and she goes, who are you? Oh, okay. Okay, let's go.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
go
wrong.
let's go do some stuff. He's like the Tom. Oh, what's his bloody name? The guy from Halloween 3. What's his bloody name? Tom Holland.
Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins. Yeah, not Tom Holland. That's something completely different. That's Spider-Man.
They're both the same. They look the same.
And yeah, so you have that bit, but Rob doesn't end very well for Rob, though, does it? Unfortunately, despite him being potentially the guy who's going to take on Jason, even though really we know it's not going to be. But yes, it doesn't. It's a garden implement he gets put into him.
Yeah, it's a good scene that because it's in the shadows again. It's you hear him screaming for quite a while, and it's kind of nasty, but you don't see a lot because it's in the basement, and I think Trish is at the top of the stairs. So it's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, I like what they did there, because you imagine it's quite nasty, and just get to hear a man screaming for a change.
Yeah, this one you get a lot of the kills are more in the dark kind of thing, a bit like sleepaway camp. You know stuff's going to happen.
Yeah,
it kind of goes off and then it comes back and you see the aftermath, because I'm sure there's moments in sleepaway camp where we've all wanted to see what was the precursor leading into it and all that type of thing, but you don't see it, like the hair tones, for instance.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, that's really unpleasant, isn't it? But
oh yes,
it's mostly a suggestion. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That was a smart move, I think.
Which I too tend to like in films where you give it more of a suggestion type thing, because sometimes you come up with obviously worse stuff in your head than what potentially might happen.
They talked about in the extras and probably on the Crystal Lake documentary as well, about how they deliberately showed some restraint throughout, so that one, they'd get away with a really graphic, gory thing for Jason at the end because it's the final one, and they've not spilled too much gore in the rest of the film, but also just to make that final bit with Jason extra impactful for audiences, because it is the most literally in-your-face moment in the whole film. And
cat scare!
Waiting for.
There's a cat scare going on.
Oh, it's like part 2 all over again.
Sorry, he's putting in his little penny's worth as well.
Well, I'm glad. Do you want to introduce who we've brought on? The fourth guest?
Bringing in Barney. He's going to shut up now. You're not going to say anything, are you?
Not Barney the dinosaur. No.
He wanted to point out that there's another good animal in this part 4. Gordon the retriever.
Ah, yes.
Who is the most sensible about the whole lot and jumps out the window and buggers off for the rest of the film.
Yep, I'm out.
Gordon knows what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, Gordon. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's gone off to Homeward Bound. He's fine.
Great career in Hollywood.
Yeah. Good old Gordon.
So in this one, it's very atmospheric, mainly because of the shadows and everything. In this one, with the sets and everything, and as we mentioned, we haven't really mentioned much of Corey Feldman, even though he's a main character really in this film.
Yeah, and he's not too annoying either.
No, I actually quite like. I've always liked his character in this.
Yeah, I quite like him. He's definitely the best Tommy. One of the best Tommies.
Oh yeah. He's the best of the 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this one, as we mentioned, Corey Feldman's character is a big fan of monster movies and all that type of thing. And to be honest, I looked at his bedroom, even when I was younger, and I seen his bedroom, I always looked at it and thought, that's a really cool bedroom. So, it's all these masks and things, and of course then Jason starts doing his thing. So what does Corey Feldman's character end up doing, old Tommy Jarvis, to try and distract Jason?
He shaves his head like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver.
He does a terrible job of it as well.
Yeah, it goes really weird. I didn't understand that bit to start off with. I was like, why is he even shaving his head in the first place? But I had that explained to me later on. I was going
to say that I'm sure his haircut is probably not as bad as some people's haircuts as it has been in lockdown. Imagine people have had some interesting haircuts. But yes, he shaves off his head. His head shaves off his head. He shaves off his head. He goes way too far. He shaves off his hair to kind of make Jason look at him as to say, remind him of himself when he was younger, which,
Okay.
to be honest, wasn't actually that much long ago. Because when we first seen Jason, it was only 1980, and this is 1984.
Yeah.
So Jason shot up. He's a big old grown boy now. He was sort of 10 in the first one, and in this one he's probably 30 something. But yeah, so he shaves off his hair, makes Jason get a bit sort of, oh my god, it's me. And what happens next, Stephen? What happens to Jason?
This is the best. Yeah, this is the best finale of the series actually. He gets a machete in the face and he falls face first onto it, which takes out a big chunk of his skull.
Yeah.
Really impressive, and you see it in quite a lingering shot. It falls down. He's definitely dead this time. There's no getting past that.
Well,
he's totally shagged.
You say that.
Yeah.
What's happened next?
No, I was going to say, well, that actually brings us to the end of the Friday the 13th films. There was only 4 eventually in the end, but yeah. What? No, what happened? No, hang on a minute. No.
It made loads of money, didn't it?
1985, that's right, 1 year later. Jason's back. Or is he?
Or is he?
So it's Friday the 13th. A new beginning. Because we've had the final chapter, so we have a new beginning. So this is Danny Steinman directing this one this time, which I believe is the only one he directed out of the lot. I can't think of anything he's directed off the top of my head. I believe this is the only one he did. But yes, so this is another, as always, a quick cash in, because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you put a final bit into any of your films. It's going to bring in more money than the previous sequels, because people just want to say that they've been to the cinema and seen the last one. So this is a hasty cash in by Paramount, but it's actually quite a good one, though a lot of people do hate it. Even now, it's 35 years later, and people still don't like this one. Though it is probably quite good, actually, compared to a lot of them. So this is Jason. Is it Jason? Stephen?
Well, this is great. The new beginning is fantastic. This is what you get when you get the guy that made Savage Streets to make a Friday the 13th movie.
That's what I was about to say.
So, this one is like, oh Christ, we've got to rush something out. It's only a year since the end. Let's make something that suggests we might be taking the mick. It's not Jason at all. Jason's dead. We all knew that. And you'd never know who the mystery killer of this one was, were it not for the frequent close-ups of one guy looking incredibly shifty all the way through with the scariest possible eyes. There's not even a red herring, because it's got to be him straight away. They're not taking it serious. This is mental. A new beginning. It doesn't deserve its bad reputation, because it is tremendous fun. Basically the killer is a paramedic.
Oh, what? No, right. Spoiler. But yes. So in this one, Corey Feldman does make a return, though it's very, very brief. But as mentioned, it's 1 year later. 1984 was the last one. This was 1985. And good old, Tommy Jarvis, who's about 10 in the last one, is suddenly mid-20s.
He's got a six-pack.
Yeah.
Although what I like is he brings his horror masks to the institution, so he's still got those.
Yes. I'd actually quite like this Tommy Jarvis. This one. It's something different. Oh, Sarah doesn't.
Oh yeah, this is where this all goes horribly wrong, because you're all going on about how much you like it.
Oh, I love this one.
Oh no,
wow.
No.
Don't worry, Stephen. I'll cut all this next bit out.
What do you think, Sarah? I really like it.
No.
Thank you, Sarah. And on to Friday the 13th part 6. Right then. Go on then. Okay, Stephen, sit back, grab a drink, because Sarah's about to rip this film to shreds.
No. I would never do that, but I just, I'm just not a massive fan of this one at all.
Oh, is that it? I thought there was going to be...
No, well, I would have done, but you're all like going on about how great it is, so I wouldn't want to bring that down. So
no, the whole idea of these is to give your honest opinion about it. So give us your honest opinion.
Oh, I didn't like Tommy as his character.
Mm.
I thought he was far too grumpy and monotone, and just no personality whatsoever.
Well,
compared to how he is as a child. I liked the beginning. I liked the little dream sequence bit when he was a kid. At the beginning, when he sees Jason get dug up and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. And then it all just kind of goes a bit downhill from there, with just a bunch of really awful characters. Apart from Ethel and Junior, they're great. I love them. Junior's brilliant.
Well, I always figured that Tommy's character, after the first one, he's kind of, well, not the first one he was in, kind of gone into a his own little trance kind of thing. He's shocked by everything, so he's constantly shocked all the time, which is the way he is in this one. He's more monotone and a bit aggressive back towards things. I just carried this because of what happened in the first one that he was in. So that's why I always thought so.
That's fair enough. It's kind of traumatic, but they do kind of have, there is like some error, like continuity errors and stuff in this one quite a lot, isn't there? I mean,
they've got the same coloured eyes, haven't they, Sarah? No.
Well,
No.
I don't look that far. But they say that he lost his mum died and his sister, but you don't actually see Trish die in the fourth one.
She's on the ground outside, unconscious. She's unconscious.
I'm sure she doesn't die. I'm pretty sure you don't see her die in that one. So he loses his mum, and then he has the traumatic experience of like him hacking Jason up, stabbing him when he's been like half decapitated and stuff. So that's fair enough. But I just think he's just that time and being in like the facility for as long as he has, you think he'd probably be a little bit cheerier.
Well, in this one, Tommy is not a cheery boy because he's belting the living crap out of people in the mental institute that he's in. Because he's there with a friend who's, I think he's a bit like Shelley, isn't he? He's a big round rotund guy.
Oh, Joey.
Eating chocolate.
Yes, and Tommy does not like chocolate donuts. He gets really annoyed about those, and he belts the living crap out of him because. I don't know. I have no reason why he's doing it. But there we go. And Steven's already kind of spoiled this one for everybody if you haven't seen it already, because the killer is not Jason. It is the paramedic. But what is the paramedic's name, Steven?
It's Roy. And Roy is righteously miffed because in a slight overreaction, one of the mental people chopped his son Joey up to pieces just because he was a messy eater. And the great thing, why I like this film so much, is because it's so mentally over the top, including that scene where Joey's not just killed, he's chopped up to the point where you see his severed arm on top of his back. And the paramedics that turn up, including Roy, but the other guy kind of is chuckling away as he covers up the body and calling the traumatized people around him bunch of pussies. It's just absolutely brilliant. The two guys that look like they're from a leather bar from cruising. Yeah, this is it's the one where they're clearly not taking it seriously, especially with Ethel and Junior, who are mental. But yeah, Roy is an admittedly rubbish Scooby-Doo type killer, but that's kind of part of the fun as well for me.
Yes. So something which nobody has mentioned yet, but I guess we're going to have to do it. It's Tiffany Helm with a robot dance. How can you not love Tiffany Helm's robot dance?
Yeah, she's brilliant. And she's got posters for the Alan Parsons project on her wall. She's got the best bedroom since Tommy Jarvis did that. And she looks like a sexy badger. She's got the best. This is the Friday version of a goth.
I suppose.
Have you seen a picture of her now?
No, I don't want to spoil the current fun. No, I have to avoid it. No,
Okay. Well, I'll put one up on the I'll put one up on the screen for you now. There you go. You can see it.
Oh, good God! That's not a sexy badger. That's a mutant badger.
No, she doesn't. She definitely does not look like her character from this film. But hey, you've always got the film to rely on. But yes, she has some bleach blonde hair and this black, as Stevens mentioned, stripe going across her hair and in her eyes. And she's doing a great robot dance in her bedroom.
It's brilliant. It's one of the highlights of the series.
And Sarah mentioned Junior earlier.
Oh, Junior.
And we have a kid. The kid who's Michael Jackson, basically.
Oh, he's great. Richard the Reckless.
Yeah, he is great. And his weird brother.
Which is the guy from Return of the Living Dead, isn't it? I forgot his name again. Demon is the character, but
Yes.
Who gets locked in the
in the toilet. Yeah, and then does that weird singing thing. What is that all about?
Ooh, baby. That one, yeah.
Yeah. That is a
There's
good
a lot of
death, though.
toilet scenes in these movies. There's
Yeah.
2 in part 3, and you can hear the plopping in part 3. I think it's that one where you could hear some actual poo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it had to sound up really loud.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, I think Demon's a good character. I think they were obviously aware that loads of kids were watching these movies, like on video or whatever. So they were gradually introducing the target audience's same age characters. And I think, as much as I dislike Tommy in all 3 versions of Tommy, I think Demon was a better choice for someone that's a bit more interesting.
Wow.
Not Demon, I meant Reggie.
Yes. So you have Reggie, as Stephen's mentioned. How does he go after fake Jason?
It was a thing, what's that?
Doesn't he get him in a tractor with a front loader?
Bulldozer.
Bulldozer, yeah.
Gets him in a bulldozer, and off he goes. Because, Roy's just too obvious to be a killer anyway, so we'll dispatch of him that way. But anybody's got their favourite kill in this one?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Me. There's like 2 really good ones. The guy that gets the belt round his head.
Yes,
I love that bit.
Yeah.
That bit. And then his girlfriend beforehand in the forest with the shears in her eyes in the front.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's nasty, isn't it? That's really nasty.
Some of those deaths are kind of get repeated again in Return to Sleepaway Camp, which is officially the 4th Sleepaway Camp film, if you don't include the Survivor film. So, like the belt scene around the tree and crunching and all that kind of stuff. That's repeated a bit in the Return to Sleepaway Camp 4. So my favourite person in this film has always been Tiffany Howe. She was my first Friday the 13th crush. Sorry, Tommy Jarvis. It was Tiffany Howe. It's my first crush. And so how does Jason get disposed of in this one? Or should I say, not Jason?
Oh, he gets pushed out of a barn as well, doesn't he?
He does.
He gets pushed out of the barn onto some farm machinery.
He does. It doesn't end well. It doesn't end well for him. So we know he's not coming back for sure. So that's the end of the. Oh no, it's not. Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives. It's 1986, 1 year later, and it's Tom McLaughlin is the person who's directing this one. So this time, this probably has one of the greatest trailers to it out of the Friday the 13th films, I think.
Okay, and a great opening theme as well. It has like the Bond thing going on.
Yeah. So obviously with a lot of these things, you kind of want to keep up in the ante. And so you had the first one made a bit of money, so we're bring on the Jason character, we'll make him into a fully fledged character. Part 3, okay, we're kind of losing a bit of money. Final chapter, well, we're not going to make money back on this one, so of course you have the 5th one, but it's just wasn't quite getting the audience it wanted to, despite having a fair bit of humor and things into it. But this one kind of opens up on it wants to be a sort of gothic 1970s horror movie with dried ice and Tommy Jarvis's character digging up a body.
Yes, great. I love this one.
And yes, and it has the great looking maggoty eyes that you see as Jason comes back to life, because Tommy, being Tommy, such a silly boy, he leaves something sharp inside of Jason, and a big lightning bolt comes down and brings him back to life. So we have now got Maggot Jason. We've had Jason as a young boy. We've had Jason who's gone to the gym. We've had Jason who's not Jason, and now we've got Maggot Jason.
Yay, zombie Jason.
Yeah, it's zombie Jason basically, which is probably most people's favourite type of Jason.
Yeah.
is when he gets to this kind of don't mess with me because I'm just going to rip your head off kind of Jason. So, as Sarah mentioned, we have a bit of a James Bond type thing come up on the screen, but it complete with blood coming down the screen, which I think was quite a good idea, because why not?
Yeah, it's fun, but it does have nothing to do with James Bond whatsoever.
No, definitely not. And in this one we have lines such as, "Any weirdo wearing a mask is never good," because he stands in front of a car when two people are driving down the road, and then I've seen films like this. It's not good. Any weirdo wearing a mask is never good. But then the guy gets out. Is it the guy or the woman? It's the guy.
No, the guy gets out. Yeah.
The guy. Yeah. And Stephen's gone very quiet. Has he gone to sleep?
Hey.
Hello.
I'm still here.
So, in this one, you have more nasty violence type thing because, special effects are getting better as you go through the 80s. And in this one, Jason's main weapon really is his machete. That's his main weapon. And in this one, he's played by C.J. Graham. So, Stephen.
Hey.
After a while, after Jason stops these two people from going off in their car, what happens next? Because obviously Tommy Jarvis has been a bit of a plonk and brought Jason back to life again.
Yeah, Tommy Jarvis is really annoying in this film. It's a shame because I like Tom Matthews from Return of the Living Dead, but
exactly, it's Freddy.
At this point, I don't care about Tommy Jarvis in these movies, but I'm so sorry. But luckily, he's in the one that's the most fun. So almost all is forgiven because the whole movie is played as a comedy, and it's kind of relentless jokes. Jason kills a whole bunch of comedy characters, like the comedy paintballers that turn up.
Yeah, I like that bit.
Triple decapitation.
Three-way decapitation
in the traditionally heavily cut version that came out and is only available. But that's really fun. There's a bunch of kids. See, for a change, you get to see some actual kids at the camp, and there's one kid reading Jean-Paul Sartre. There's no joke. And there's some creepy stuff with the kids. So the movie, as you suggested, the movie's got this fantastic old school Universal Studios graveyard scene at the start, and then later on it's kind of got a lot more atmosphere than any of the previous ones, really. It's the one with the Shakespearean, it's the one with the comedy caretaker drunk guy who talks straight to the camera and says, some folks have got a strange idea of entertainment.
Why did they have to go dig up Jason? Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
Yeah, and he's talking to his bottle and singing away. And so, 10 years before Scream, this was the slasher parody, essentially. It was total deconstruction of the movie. Jason's a zombie. They don't care about the backstory, apart from Tommy Jarvis, who I guess they're stuck with, unfortunately. Sorry. It's just great. And all the characters seem to me, like the ones you just said about, I've seen enough horror movies, blah, blah, blah. All of the characters kind of talk in comic strip kind of speech bubbles, really, which is why it's so much fun. The only other guy I don't like in this, but I guess you're not meant to like him, is the really annoying sheriff. But his daughter character is a really kind of smart, likable character, which is a nice change after the kind of couple of more dull final girls in the series. This is huge fun, just huge fun. And the only one with no nudity at all.
Yes. It's also the only one that doesn't have the Friday the 13th music as the end credits.
Yes, it has Alice Cooper.
It's got a proper song soundtrack.
Some fantastic Alice Cooper songs in there. They're brilliant.
Well, he comes back later on, old Alice Cooper. We'll bring him back later. So, as we mentioned, Tommy Jarvis is Sarah's favourite in this one. Not Stephen's favourite, but it's just the typical thing. Jason's going around, but now he's maggoty zombie Jason. He's going around killing off the campers. And Tommy Jarvis's character obviously is potentially somebody they're going to point the finger at because of past things that's happened. But who takes on Jason this time to kill him again?
Tommy and Megan, don't they?
Tommy and Megan. Yeah, come on 1-on-1 this time. They take him on they didn't beat him the first time. It's we're going to do it this time. But how do they get rid of him? But how do they get rid of Jason?
They chain him to a boulder and throw him in the lake.
Yeah, yeah.
The perfect plan. What could go wrong with a plan like shoving a big rock round his neck?
Yeah, and like trying to drown a zombie that doesn't need to breathe anyway. He's just going to be just kind of hanging there. So if that's not like done it, then Megan just like shoves a propeller in his face.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah,
rips him up. For
That's
about 15 minutes. It feels like that scene goes on for about 15 minutes. From
and it looks like his head
angle.
comes off. Yeah. How did he get away with that? Oh.
Yeah. But that was cool.
So yeah, that's the end of Jason until 1988.
Oh God.
It's Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, which is directed by the late great John Carl Buechler. So special effects artist, first Friday the 13th film had a special effects artist doing all Jason stuff. And of course, why not have a special effects artist directing a movie? Because that sometimes can come up well. And as we mentioned, Jason's didn't have a very good time in Part 6. He's now at the bottom of the lake. And continue. One of you.
Oh, the great thing is it's got a voiceover by Crazy Ralph, the narration at the start. Well, not Crazy Ralph in character, but
is that,
Walt Gorney.
Is that the only thing you remember from the film?
It's one of the few good things. Previously, blah, blah, the voiceover is by Walt Gorney. This is Jason versus Carrie. So in the confused timeline, that somehow means Camp Crystal Lake has 2 corpses at the bottom of the lake for about 10 years. The heroine basically has a kind of argument with her dad, and she's telekinetic and accidentally sends her dad to drown in the lake by wishing him dead.
Mm-hmm.
And cut to the future, she's a bit upset about sending her dad to an untimely death, so she wishes him back, but this time it goes really badly wrong and instead gets Jason popping up instead, who is now in kind of full blown, we had a bit more time and money to spend on Jason looking ragged, and he's got his rib cage and things like that, and his jawbone impressively on display. So it's a really cool looking Jason, who then of course heads to the usual bunch of campers to take part in some heavily censored mayhem.
Yeah, in this one, and it is the first of the many movies that Kane Hodder is Jason, which again, we're later on, we'll pick our favourite person who played Jason later on. But later on, you've got her character going up against Jason in the house, fires and all that type of stuff happening, and wires coming around trying to strangle Jason to death. Then his mask gets taken off and he ends up looking like something from a Fulci movie.
That's a great makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
After all this time of Jason being able to survive all these types of things, machetes in the head and all that type of thing, what takes him down this time is a girl who has telekinesis and all that type of stuff. So how does Jason get dispatched off this time?
In several different ways.
He does, yes. He's definitely different ways.
Like you say, he gets burnt, he gets slashed, he gets the porch caved in on him.
Yeah, it doesn't go well for Jason in this one. But Stephen, is there any particular reason this is not one of your favourites? Because usually, what I've heard from people generally, 5 and 7 are usually the ones people are sort of a bit mixed on. So why is number 7 for you not?
Well, I think it's important to say that, to be honest with you, the 10-year-old me loved all of these films. So I think it's important to say that these movies in the 80s, when I was the kind of Tommy Jarvis age, all of these movies were my favourite movies, and I couldn't remember. I did like little reviews even back then. They're really rubbish, of course, but they were like 10 stars for all of them because I had so much fun watching them. So that's important to say. So they did give me huge entertainment value. This is the one that maybe holds up as one of the least. It's just very bland. It's blandly made. It feels like they're really kind of going through the motions, and the Tina thing always felt a bit desperate. she's not an especially, I think she's a decent actress, but she's not an especially kind of engaging character because she's kind of weeping her way through the film. I think it exists to have a really impressive finale, which it does have, with loads of cool stunts. Kane Hodder's there, so he's on fire and he's literally kind of bringing down the house. It's falling around him and everything. The kills are famously kind of toned down, which is a bit of a shame, not their fault, but there's some great kills in there that kind of got neutered, like the famous sleeping bag kill. And there's a head crushing that I think got heavily cut. And the biggest bastard character of the whole film gets killed in a really nasty way, but you don't see much, and you've waited the whole film to watch the psychiatrist guy get killed. But most importantly, it has the most silly, the most embarrassing ending of any of these films, which is where Tina's kind of perfectly preserved dad jumps out of the water to drag Jason under, which is just embarrassing. I can't believe anybody signed off on that. It's just a low point.
I did see in the documentary that he got like royally stiffed on that, the director, for that, because they'd done all this work with the guy and like made him look all decomposed and stuff like that, hadn't they?
Yes.
And they were going to do like a big ending and stuff, and then I think one of the producers just went, nah, don't do that. And then in the end they went, oh yeah, okay. So they weren't ready, so they just had to just kind of dirty him up a bit and go, there you go. And it just looked awful.
It feels like it's a compromised movie, doesn't it? And that and the whole movie, I think.
The dad returns, but why doesn't he return in any other films?
He's still down there.
Exactly.
He just returns to his watery grave at the end. Oh, I've got Jason down here. I'll be back off now.
So, Stephen mentioned Tina. She, the actress La Park Lincoln, also was in The House 2.
Yeah, she's good in that. She's a good
House
actress.
2, and I believe she's in an episode of Freddy's Nightmares as well, which still needs a good DVD or Blu-ray release somewhere along the line. Just seems to be lost for time, and we'll probably watch it and go, oh, I can see why it was lost to time, but
possibly.
But she's she did go off to other stuff. Basically, Knots Landing was her staple career thing for the majority of her career, but she's to be coming back again. So but as Steve mentioned, she's not one of most people's favorite sort of female leads in the Friday the 13th films. So Jason gets drowned again, and we're now heading to 1989 for Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, directed by Rob Hayden, which is actually one of my favourite Friday the 13th films. It's fun. For a lot of people, it's not. It went completely the wrong way for them, but I like the idea. A bit like Halloween 3, they did something different. So, Stephen.
Hi.
So, welcome to Camp Crystal Lake, which we've never seen big boats on before. And here's a big boat that's going to come across your big lake that nobody's ever seen a big boat on before. And put down the anchor, and you seem to have severed a wire, which is bringing Jason back to life. What happens next?
Yeah, Jason's back, and Crystal Lake now has a direct link to New York City.
It does.
Can just travel straight from the lake to New York, which is
so it's a lake. So how did the boat get out?
I'm not quite sure how that works. I'm not quite sure. No one's mentioned that before. Yeah. Jason eventually takes Manhattan. Yeah. So so you get a rehash of the story at the start. I'll go and check kind of thing. Jason's back through the medium that you just mentioned. He's revived again by electricity, isn't he? Because he gets attached to him.
Yeah. When I put the anchor down, it severs the power cables underneath the water, and it brings Jason back to life, who thinks it's time for a holiday. I want to go away from Camp Crystal Lake. I've been here, I've been there. I mean, I had that one time when I went to go see Alice, but she wasn't very hospitable. She died on me, so
weather was a bit rubbish.
Yeah, so figured, why not? Head to New York. They say New York is a great place to go, so this is his time to shine. Yay.
Oh, a nice joke is that the boat's called Lazarus, which I thought was
it
nice
indeed.
joke.
Yes.
This does have some likable people in it. Like, I think Renee is a nice character. She's pretty well acted as well, actually, and there's even like the kind of obligatory bitchy one is kind of well played, I think, as well.
The coke addict.
Yeah, the coke addict. Yeah, there's a lot of drugs, both behind the scenes and on the screen in the Friday movies. I think everybody was probably doing it for real because it was the 80s.
Yeah.
When they weren't shagging each other. Yeah, and so there's some good characters. Jason's back. He's on the boat because they can't afford much time in New York. And you get the new version of Crazy Ralph is the deckhand who's like, this voyage is doomed. He's Crazy Ralph, but in a remixed version. And
it's his cousin. Seafaring cousin.
He never mentioned his family. His entire family are in these movies. You've got somebody to boo and sneer at, which is the guy that brought up the heroine. Was he her uncle or a stepdad?
Her uncle.
Yeah,
her uncle. Her uncle who's
pushed her in.
Yeah, just
he's mean.
You can't swim. Okay, what do you mean you can't ride a horse? Get on. You can't fly. Chuck you off a building. Oh, just before we continue with this one, we didn't neither of us mention what our favourite kill was from Friday the 13th Part 7.
Ooh, where's my notes?
Part 7.
There isn't surprisingly that many in this one because most of it got cut out by the MPAA.
Oh, the party trumpet in the eye. That's a good one.
Uh-huh.
There's a really nasty girl in Part 7, and she got an axe in the face, but it felt like a real axe in the face moment, as in it felt kind of harsh. So I really like that bit in Part 7. She's so mean. She was really mean.
In no more films after that, so maybe it was a real axe.
Because she's so mean. It's horrible to everyone, I heard.
Anyway, now we can go back to the uncle who probably shouldn't be looking after children ever, because he's clearly not good at it.
He's mean.
He is mean.
He's meaner than the other mean person.
He pushes her into the water, which is when she believes she sees something in the water, which could be Jason. Bear in mind, all of this time that this has happened, from the first one till now, we're now 1989, and Jason's come out of the water. He's now a full-grown boy now, and all these people that seem to have been kids when Jason was a full adult seems to have grown up very fast in 10 years. So if they was 5 in 1984, suddenly they're 30 in 1989. But in this one, we are now on the boat heading to Manhattan because they're all on a trip to celebrate, I think it's a school prom thing or graduation, yeah. So that Jason's currently on the boat now doing his stalker thing, going around there killing everybody on and off. She keeps seeing potentially Jason, or is it, at like portholes and everything. And a bit later on, she has a bit of a hissy fit with the girl who's snorting coke for the good percentage of the movie, and she ends up having sex with those other people as well. And then we get into let's go into the ballroom bit, which is where a bit later on we get to see possibly my favourite kill in this one, which is the girl getting her face smashed into the mirror.
Yes.
You get all the shards in her eyes and all that bit. But there's other deaths in this one that's quite good, which one of the other ones I'll talk about in a minute. But yes, this one you had the shards in the mirror, and the boat turns up at the port, and now Jason's actually in Manhattan. He's now going across the area, and this is when the token black guy in this one decides he wants to have a fight with Jason. So he he has a fight with Jason on top of the top of a skyscraper, and he starts belting Jason in the face, and Jason just one foul swoop smacks his head off. That's the other
yeah, that's a good one.
That's the other my favorite deaths in this one, is just the fact that he belts his head off so hard, because it's the way that the guy's punching Jason in the face really hard, and Jason's doing Jason's doing
Yeah.
absolutely nothing, and in just one foul swoop, he takes his head off.
Yep. And it ends up in the bin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's straight in the bin. Yeah.
Yep.
And then, it's a bit later on. Jason's now walking down the streets of Manhattan. He's now in Times Square, as which when he comes across all those punk guys, and he ends up kicking their radio, ghetto blaster, and then they're hey guy trying to take him on, and he just takes off his mask slightly, and you can tell that they get scared the crap out of them by the hideous sighting underneath Jason's mask.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not long till then after that we start going into the sewers of New York, which is when it becomes that bit that not a lot of people tend to like about this film, which is Stephen.
Oh, it's terrible. Oh, yeah. I mean, basically the sewers flood with toxic waste, and it turns out that toxic waste not only kills Jason, but it turns him back to being a little boy again.
It does indeed.
Which I think was straight from the Disney Channel.
It probably was. So, favourite kills in this one? I've mentioned mine.
The flying V kill, the guitar kill in lower part of the thing. She's cool as well. Doing her little music video, and then she gets smacked in the head with a flying V.
Yeah. Stephen?
Probably the mirror one's really brutal, but I quite like the guy with the sauna rocks in his chest. That was quite nasty.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, there's another one with a dog as well.
Yeah, the dog survives. Yeah, the dog still survives these movies.
Yeah, he runs off several times, but comes back at the end, and you're like, yes, he's alive. Good old Toby.
Yeah, the mean streets of New York.
Yeah.
Resilient.
Well, Jason's had a bit of a holiday now. He's gone to New York. He's gone to Manhattan, but he's back. But this time, 4 years later. There's a big gap between this, and it's Jason Goes to Hell, the final, not so much Friday, which is 1993. So, Sarah, you can kick this one off.
Oh, okay then. I'm trying to think where it starts off.
It starts off with a lady in a cabin getting ready for bed and everything.
Yes. You think she's moved back in, and you're wondering what's going on. She's like, lights are going off, and she's screwing lights back in, and then he gets her when she's in the shower, and she's running through the woods, and then all of a sudden, all these flashlights come on and illuminate Jason, and then he just gets blown up by all these FBI agents. So it's a good start. Blown into like so many different bits, head going off and arms and legs everywhere, which they then collect up and take back to the coroner's office. And then during the autopsy, one of the doctors, he notices his heart start beating, doesn't he?
Yes.
The heart's just sitting there and it starts beating. And then for some strange reason, he then picks up the heart, stares at it, and then eats it. And then kind of gets taken over by Jason's spirit and goes around starting to kill people, and that's when you then find out that Jason had a sister.
Yes,
which we'd never heard of before.
Yes, that's right. It's gone all Halloween on us. We suddenly start hearing about people we've never heard of before.
Random family members just appear, and she works in a local diner.
Yeah. So, Stephen, do you want to continue from there? Now that the coroner has now taken a big old bite of Jason's heart.
Yes, so then it turns out that Jason is kind of represented by this parasitic slug type thing borrowed from the Hidden that jumps from body to body, and he goes about his business. And meanwhile, the great Stephen Williams is basically playing Robert Shaw from Jaws. He's the bounty hunter who's offering, I think, like $500,000 to get the mask, get the machete, the whole damn thing. And he's got this nasty bit that I remember from the jail cell with John DeLaMay from the Friday the 13th TV series, who's the hero here. Sadly, without the two other people from the TV series, that would have been a nice investigation for them away from their usual kind of antiques gone bad. He's got this nasty habit of breaking his fingers, which is really unpleasant.
Yes. Well, you shouldn't. It's something to do with to see how resilient you are or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the jail cell that scene happens. You have all that happen, and meanwhile, all this is going on. the person who's currently got Jason's spirit within inside him is going around doing Jason-y things. So if you're expecting to see Jason running around in a mask, you don't see much of that until, well, apart from the very, very beginning, a bit later on in the film, but it's not much of it. You have the scenes where I'm sure it's this one. The guy gets it's this one. The burger place where the guy gets his face fried on the
Leslie Jordan.
Hot plate thing.
Yeah.
And you have that happen, and it has at this point become a bit of a spoof of itself in terms of what's going to happen. But that's going to happen with any sequel anyway. But it is a bit of an odd one. This one. It's not everybody's favourite, though I quite like it.
Yeah, it's one of mine.
And as we go through it, you may have noticed Kane Hodder does make an appearance as himself.
Oh, he gets killed, doesn't he? He's the is he an agent or something?
One of the guards.
One of the guards, yes.
Hospital.
Jason, not Jason as himself, Jason, but Jason inside somebody else kills Jason, technically. But so and then you have the talk about the burgers, aren't they little hockey masks, aren't they?
Yeah, they're called the Voorhees burger.
Yeah.
And the chips are Jason fingers.
Yes, that's it.
For one burger sale.
Yeah.
She's great, isn't she? The Joey.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that what's her name? Is it Rusty Swimmer?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really great. Yeah, she's fun.
So
it just has so many other little bits in it as well that are just little teases, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, this one's quite fun.
The Necronomicon turns up at one point in the Voorhees house.
The Voorhees house. We get the Necronomicon.
And the Kandarian dagger.
Yes, I was going to say we have the dagger, which it's very Omen-esque golden child. We're going to use a dagger to get rid of the demon. So yes, the dagger comes out, which of course we've never heard of this dagger before either. But hey, why not? And using the dagger, we get rid of Jason, and his hockey mask falls off. It's the last thing on top of the ground. But what happens next? Because it's not the end. Something exciting happens, which makes everybody excited for the next 20 plus years. It's Freddy Krueger's hand pops out of the ground, grabs Jason's mask and pulls it in. So, of course, at this point, New Line I've started going out and buying Paramount and all these other places out. And so it's that thing of, we could have a Jason Freddy film. So this is where all the comic books and everything stem from. It was all that sort of thing. Which is kind of funny because that's basically what happened with the Alien vs. Predator. That happened based on Predator 2 when Danny Glover goes into the ship and you see an alien skull on the Predator ship. And you can see that's basically where the comic book ideas comes from that. So you have the same sort of thing happen with this. So, yeah, Jason's now dead. It's 1993. It's the only time Jason makes an appearance in the 90s. The 80s was his decade, 1993. Any favourite deaths from Final Friday?
Yes. This is the rare one that got like a proper uncut release. Not over here though, but in America it should. The best death, especially in the proper version, has also got like some rare male frontal nudity as well, so you get to see a bit of a cock. But it's the great tent spike ripping the girl in half moment, which is a great effect by the KMB guys.
Yes, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm so gutted that I missed that because I saw the cut version, so you only see the guy getting covered in blood, so you just have to guess that that's what happened.
Oh, man.
I forgot a death I was going to mention earlier. One of my favourite deaths in the whole of the Friday the 13th franchise, something very simplistic, but I've always liked it, is when Jason grabs somebody in a sleeping bag, pulls them and wraps them across a tree. It's very simple, but I just like the whole.
It's hilarious as well, isn't it? Yeah,
I like that.
I agree with you on that. That's one of my favourites. I'm trying to think of the other kills. Yeah, definitely Leslie Jordan getting his face burnt
Fried.
off in the fryer is pretty cool in that one. I just think Jason in general looks pretty cool in that one because
Yeah.
kind of face is melting into his mask and stuff.
Yeah.
There's
But
just some good effects in that one.
But yes,
And the way the hosts kind of melt once, like the weird little wormy Jason thing has gone into someone else, they just kind of melt into this huge pile of mush. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, there's some great meltdown. Yeah.
so that's the end of Jason in the 90s. Yeah, had a long time then, nearly 10 years of potential. Is this what's going to happen? Will there be another Jason film? Don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Jason X happens in 2002. We have Uber Jason. We have the awesome, which I always quite like, Jason. So this is 2002, directed by James Isaac. This time, Jason has gone from the lake, gone to Manhattan. He's now gone to space. That's right, Jason's in space now. It's like Hellraiser and the Leprechaun films. They've gone to space because the Earth is just not big enough anymore for anybody. So he's gone to space. So this is the first Jason film in just over 15 years that actually went in the cinema. It actually had a big cinema release. And it has Kane Hodder once again behind the mask, which nobody mentioned in Jason Takes Manhattan. I was waiting for somebody to mention Alice Cooper's song, but nobody did. Yeah. So this time, Jason is now in space. But why is he in space, everybody?
Because he was cryogenically frozen.
Yeah, he was cryogenically frozen until the year 2455. Because for some strange reason, everybody wants to pick up Jason. I don't know why. You know, bit like the aliens in the Alien movies. You know, that's killing thing. So you want to take it and bring it back to life. So this time he's on the ship. He's being pulled out, and they're using a lot of nanobots to try and fix him up because he's a bit mangled at the moment. But this is when Jason becomes Uber Jason. He has his cool, what you know him as, but then he becomes this kind of machine type thing now.
He does look cool. His mask is cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I have a question about the Jasons, though.
The Jasons?
Yeah, the Jasons, as they go along. In most of the movies, he's pretty much bald, isn't he?
Yes.
Until you get to, like, I don't know, part 6 or 7, where he starts to have hair. And then in Jason X, he has an entirely full head of hair.
Bought a toupee.
That's just weird.
He bought a toupee.
That is strange. Yeah, it's like Terry Wogan.
That's what he did. That's what he was doing. That's what he was doing in Manhattan. He went to go to the toupee.
shopping.
Hair transplant.
Yeah, exactly. So
that explains it. Oh, there we go.
That's the
Now I know.
only explanation.
yes. So in this one, you have loads of jokes about things. Yeah, it's in the future, so there's lots of things, jokey type things. My favourite death in this is probably quite a lot of people's favourite death from the Jason X film is the bit where somebody gets their face frozen and then Jason just smashes the face into into a side of a wall or something. Mm-hmm. But anybody else have a favourite one?
Oh yes.
Yes,
I do. I have two.
Oh, you have two.
As well as the face smashing one, there's the guy that gets impaled on the giant corkscrew.
Yes, that's a great one. Yeah,
that is very cool. And then of course you have the two girls in the holodeck scene that he's like smashing in the sleeping bags again. You're just like, yes, he's doing that again.
It's the virtual reality simulation. For some reason, they have it's the I don't know, just so Jason thinks he's on Earth.
They try to trap him, don't they?
He's back home, yeah.
But,
and he's just bashing them both in the sleeping bags on top of each other. It's hilarious.
They failed miserably. And yes, so this time Jason is, as he mentioned, he's Uber Jason. He's doing all these things. But how does he get disposed of this time? Because this will be the last time we see Jason.
No, in several ways, because he gets killed twice, obviously, in this one, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because KM like completely obliterates him. She like shoots his arm off and then his leg and then completely like caves his head in. And then he then gets like recreated by the little wormy ant things.
Nanobots.
into Uber Jason. Nanobots, of course.
Yeah.
And then he gets like, I don't know, he just gets chucked out of the spaceship, doesn't he, with Brodsky?
Oh, yeah, I think
Yeah, it's he has an alien moment. He gets blasted out into space.
Yeah.
Never to be seen again.
Well, he kind of gets they're like trying to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, aren't they? The two of them are kind of fighting on top of each other, and then lo and behold, they crash into a lake, and all you see is his mask.
Yeah. Which, that was 2002. But 2003, 10 plus years after Jason and Freddy kind of had a little bit of a tease at the end of part 9, we actually get the heading off scene of Freddy versus Jason. Roddy, I actually booked the day off work to go watch this in the cinema the day it came out.
Oh, and what did you think?
I actually really liked it.
Yay!
I liked it. I know a lot of people don't seem to like it, but
yeah, no, I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it did the right thing of giving everybody what they wanted. You had a bit of, what Jason does, you had what Freddy does, and nobody really wins, nobody really loses, is the gist of this. So we'll let Stephen take this one from the beginning. As he seems to be having a nap in the background.
This is fun. Yeah, this was a good event in the cinema because it was one of those kind of packed cinema moments, which of course we won't see for a while, forever. But what I like about this, actually, it mostly is, Abbott and Costello meet Freddy and Jason, kind of Looney Tunes hitting each other with massive things, comedy, cartoon stuff, which is great. But it also reminds you like how sinister Freddy is. So it opens up with what I think is I know they did it in the TV series, but I don't remember them doing too much in the movie series, like showing pre-burn Freddy kind of being very creepy around a small girl, which is where you get to see Robert Englund in no Freddy makeup, which is obviously very disturbing. And Freddy narrates this one, which is kind of sarcastic and quite grim as well. And the setup is that kind of the teens in modern day Elm Street, they haven't even heard of Freddy Krueger, so he kind of needs them to. He needs to be known so that he can actually jump into their nightmares. So he has the ingenious plan of disguising himself as Mrs. Voorhees, who's played by someone that isn't Betsy Palmer, to kind of G up Jason to go on a killing spree in Elm Street to make them both relevant again. So I quite like the premise, because it's basically saying, neither of these two are relevant anymore because the kids have moved on to other horror movies. And we need something like Freddy versus Jason to actually bring them back to the cinema again, which of course it did. It was deservedly a huge hit. And so it goes. You get a bunch of teenagers. A lot of it plays as a Jason movie because you do get quite a cool Jason rampage. Like there's a great scene I remember in a cornfield. There's a great death where he bends a guy backwards in his bendable, foldable even bed. And interspersed with this is a lot of jokes, a bit like the previous two. It's very self-referential. This one as well came after Scream and all those ones, but it's funnier. It's got some good jokes and a lot of good bad taste stuff, like Freddy shagging a corpse, which I thought was a great thing and a surprising thing to find in a really mainstream film like this. So yeah, it's good fun.
Directed by Ronnie Yu, this one, and this time you have Ken Kirzinger as Jason, which is one of the things that people kind of like. It would have been cool to have, Robert Englund taking on Kane Hodder. That was the thing that a lot of people were miffed on about this one. But I thought he did a good job. And in this one we have Ginger herself. Ginger turns up in this. Catherine Isabel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's very good. Yeah.
Well, most people know her from the Canadian werewolf film Ginger Snaps. It's a majority thing, and a bit later on, American Mary. That's the two things that most people tend to remember her from. So, after a while, we have the, Freddy manipulating Jason into doing what he wants to do. We have a few flashbacks of what Jason used to look like. We have bullies taking a sack onto Jason's head, reminiscent of his sack in part 2. And then, of course, you get towards the end where they are guaranteed to have the big fight. But who wins? Nobody.
Laurie wins.
No, not really. Although he's just a head at the end, isn't he? Freddy is just a winking head, I suppose.
A little winking head.
Yeah, nobody really wins at the end of this because Jason's still about, Freddy's still about, because Freddy's he's done what he wanted to do really, which was to get his memories, people back in people's heads again. So he's back out there again. Jason could, of course, still do his thing, but as it was, there was a proposed idea to potentially do a sequel to this, but that never happened. But it did happen in comic books, and that'll be it again. That's it again for Jason, I'm afraid, until the remake, which was 2009, and Marcus Nipple did this one. So, Stephen, as you've been so quiet for the past 3, I think you've been having a sleep or whatever you've been doing, you can take this one.
The remake. Yeah, the remake came along as part of a barrage of remakes of 70s and 80s stuff. So Marcus Nispel did the Texas Chainsaw remake, which I thought was actually really good.
Yep.
And this came just before the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which is a total bag of shit. Interestingly, this one, although this one is probably wisely, I guess they had a few choices of what direction to take this one in. It's done by the writers of Freddy vs. Jason, but it's entirely serious. I mean, there's the odd joke, there's some stoner humor, which a lot of the Friday movies have, including Freddy vs. Jason. But mostly it's actually played as a kind of, like the Chainsaw remake, it's played as a kind of intense slasher movie. It's quite brutal. It's taking the initial films as inspiration. So the first kind of section of the film, more or less, is the first 4 movies in a reduced form. So you get a confrontation with Mrs. Voorhees, not played by Betsy Palmer, which I'm sure wasn't a sore point for Betsy Palmer that she didn't mention 300 times. And you've got a Rob character who's played by one of the interchangeable handsome guys from Supernatural, which I haven't watched, so I don't know his name, but he's one of those, possibly the one that isn't in My Bloody Valentine, or possibly the one that is.
Jared Padalecki is the one in this one.
Bless you.
Oh, yeah.
Him.
Yeah, he's nice.
He's cute. Guy. And actually, because it's 2009, everybody in this film looks like they're an underwear model. So everybody, unlike
even Jason looks like a underwear model.
Jason is in Speedos. Thanks, Derek Pierce. Yeah, so everybody looks great. Which is the nice thing about the 80s ones, I suppose, is that most of them, well, in fact, all of them look kind of like they could be real teenagers. But here, everybody's a Gap model. There's some cool things about this. I mean, it's a fun movie. There's 13 kills, which was one of the things they wanted to do, which I don't think any of the others did specifically set out to do. There's the usual stuff around the campfire. It's really well shot. It's very slick because it's a big studio production. So it's probably, one of the most expensive of the series now at New Line. There's quite a good heroine who's a bit similar to Amy Steele. She does some similar stuff to what Amy Steele did during the showdown of part 2. And there's a topless water skier, which is, great. There's also there's another person in a sleeping bag being horribly murdered. Although in this case, it's more sadistic. Yeah. It's actually really quite unpleasant in this one.
Oh.
Yes. So it's
no fun. Really.
It's basically the same death that was in part 7. And as mentioned earlier, it happened again in Jason X. And this one has Derek Mears as Jason, who I actually quite like as Jason. Yeah, I think he has quite a foreboding presence about him, his height and everything, and his build. Even when you see him, obviously not as Jason, as his real self, he actually, he looks like a really friendly guy. So there's that, but he's obviously really, really tall and really, really big. So yeah, but Stephen. What is it about this that some people do not like, other than the fact that Kane Hodder is not the one playing Jason, obviously?
Oh, I don't know. Probably a bunch of things. I mean, is it that Jason has like a whole lair, like an evil master villain in a James Bond film? He's got an underground lair.
He does. He thinks, he's in Texas Chainsaw 2. That's what's happened here.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
And he's kept someone in there because she looks a bit like his old mum did when she was younger.
Yeah. There's a lot of things about this one that people don't like. I don't overly mind it. Is it my favourite? No. I like the fact that they tried to do something different with it, but still trying to keep, obviously, what people are familiar with from all the rest of them. But Sarah hasn't seen this one.
No.
So you should at least check it out now you've seen all the other Friday the 13th films. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts probably next time.
Okay.
About what you thought of this one.
I will.
Which
I watched the trailer and I was very intrigued. I think I would actually, that is something that I will actually quite enjoy watching. So I will definitely give you my thoughts on it next time.
Cool.
It's worth watching.
And yes, a favourite death from this one, Stephen?
Oh, I do like the sleeping bag one. Is really brutal in this one, but there's a couple of good ones. There's a really good one. This is just from memory, actually, but there's a really nasty one, which I think is just a conventional machete through the head for a guy that's being terrorized in the water. But it's played really, like much of the movie, it's played quite intense. So it feels more vicious than the more kind of knockabout fun ones from the old movies. That's the one that sticks in mind.
Well, in this one, he's mainly using his machete to take people apart. Yeah. And there's obviously special effects have again got better, so you have some really graphic throat slashings and things like that. But it's actually a pretty good reboot, which is what it was supposed to be. Really, it's supposed to be a reboot and see what was to happen, but obviously that didn't happen. And then since then, there's been 11 years now. And the constant talks of there being another Friday the 13th film. Will there be one? Won't there be one? Just have to wait and see. But maybe it will happen because you've had Halloween. Halloween's come back. Candyman's obviously done its thing. And there is talks of them doing another Friday the 13th film, but that's been going on for years. But this time it looks like they might actually pull the trigger on it, because there's been countless scripts written out over the years of potential ideas. The one I've always really liked, I can't remember the guy who did it at the moment, but there's a script where it's done in the snow, which I just think is great. Anyway, just Jason stalking around in the snow at Camp Crystal Lake with blood pouring all over the place. I just thought visually it looked really good. That's what I liked about it. So yes, that concludes the Friday the 13th films as of right now. So now it comes the big task of us all choosing our favourites. So I guess I'm going to exclude the remake / reboot / whatever else you want to call it, because Sarah hasn't seen it. But what I would say outside of it, I would say I put it as my last one. That's what I would say. Okay. Just because I'm a big fan of the other ones. So Stephen,
hey,
let's go backwards on this one. So in terms of this remake, Stephen, what did you think of the remake? Whereabouts is it on your list? For me, it's last.
On my list, it was actually number 9.
Okay. So number 9, and Sarah hasn't got this one, so be interested to see what she comes up next time. So we're now going to go back to Freddy versus Jason. Where's that on yours?
Oh, sorry, do you mean me still?
Whoever.
Oh no, I hate it. I put Freddy vs. Jason at number 4.
Oh, snap!
Oh, cool.
Interesting. I put that as number 9. Yes, number 9. Yeah. Okay, let's go to Jason X now.
Number 7.
Yep.
Oh, I've got that as number 8.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Final Friday.
Oh, Jason Goes to Hell.
Yep.
All the way, number 10.
Oh, what? Oh, I got that as number 6, and I thought that was quite low because I really liked that one. I think that's my favourite. That's my favourite Jason.
Oh, cool.
That is in 7 for me. And Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Oh, don't hate me, but number 12.
Oh, this one's in number 3 for me.
Oh, I've got it in the middle, number 7-ish.
Yeah, 7-ish.
Middle ground, same.
7-ish.
Middle-ish. 7.
Okay, this is the one that's going to be interesting. Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood.
It was almost last. I put it at number 11 in the end. I was a bit kind.
Oh, yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, carry on. What have you got it as?
I've got mine as number 10.
Yeah, that's what I got. Mine's number 10 as well. Okay, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
Here it is, my favourite of all, number 1.
Yeah, same.
Yes, awesome.
Woo!
Mine's 5.
Oh,
It's in 5th on that one. Okay, talking about 5. Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Number 6.
I've got that all the way down the bottom of my list at number 11. Bad film.
Okay. Where did we get to? Friday the 13th, Part Beginning. Mine was 4 on that one. Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. So, 4th one.
Final Chapter was just ahead of New Beginning. I put that at number 5, but it was a tight race for me with those two.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My number 9.
It's number 8 for me. And no, not number 8. Yeah, the number is number 8. Yeah. What's on that? Friday the 13th, Part 3.
Oh, for the 3D joint alone, this is at number 8.
I've got that at number 5.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Mine is in number 2 for this one. So, where did we get to? Friday the 13th, Part 3. Friday the 13th, Part 2.
That came in really well at number 3.
Okay. This is currently it's sort of hanging between 5 and 6. It's a bit like Sarah's 7th one. It's kind of like middle ground. It's got no real number to it, sort of hanging there.
Oh, I've got that as my number 2.
Okay.
Great choice. Yeah, that deserves.
And lastly, Friday the 13th, Part 1.
Number 2.
Sarah?
I've got it as number 3.
I've got it as number 1. I've got it as number 1 because if it wasn't for this, there wouldn't be a Friday the 13th franchise.
That is true. That's what kept this. That was the one that threw me when I was actually making this list. But it is good, but there are so many others that I prefer to it. But if, like you're right, like you say, none of the others would exist if it were not for this one.
But to be honest, I wrote my list out. And then I went through my list, and I went through my list, and it's changed a few times. So at this moment, that's what it is at the precise moment in time. So probably after we finish recording, it's going to go. Oh, actually, I think that one should go. as is always the case with these sort of lists. Yeah. So yes, that was a good old chat about the Friday the 13th films. Which Friday the 13th, the first one, 1980. Is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year, so it seems apt to be talking about it. Mm-hmm. So Sarah will be checking out the remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
For next time. But has anybody else got anything to say about the Friday the 13th films before we go off to the ether?
Favorite Jason was the last thing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, favorite Jasons.
Kane Hodder.
Yeah, I do have to agree with Pete on that because he did bring a lot to them with his little like funny quirky little head shakes and stuff. Yeah. Definitely. But I also really like CJ Graham. Yes. And then I thought he was really good. And then who did I say was Jason Goes to Hell? That was my favourite Jason out of all the films. That was Kane Hodder though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true, yeah.
Yeah, Kane Hodder was in 4 of the Friday the 13th films. Mm-hmm. But it's Kane Hodder, and I would probably CJ Graham, and Derek Mears is probably my top 3. I quite like Ken Kazinga, but I didn't think he was on screen a lot, obviously, but he didn't have a lot to kind of show himself as what he could bring to Jason, whereas Kane Hodder did. Obviously, have to bring his own little quirks, his head movements, or just the way he moved, or whatever. So, Stephen, what's yours?
Yeah, I was. My only problem with Kane Hodder really is just that he's in the least favourite of my movies, like Part 7 and 8. I think are quite ropey movies, and the other two I do like, but I don't think they're my favourites. I was never that precious about who was playing Jason. I was never worried about them changing who was playing it because I thought they were all pretty good. I actually would say CJ Graham because he's in my favourite one, but I also really like the kind of Fulci style zombie of him, the zombie look of him, and I like the way he stomps around the forest and he's breezing through a massive body count. And I always really liked Richard Brooker, who I thought was really quite sinister, somehow more sinister than some of the others in Part 3, which is one of the ones I've watched the most, so maybe that has something to do with it as well. But yeah, I can't say there's anybody particularly that was miscast. Maybe the second part guy is a bit skinny, but there's been some great ones all the way through. Kane Hodder has the best makeup unmasked, of course.
Oh yeah. So out of all of these, so you can only pick one. What?
Oh, CJ Graham. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you. Jump in the gun. I was going to say, what's the one you've seen the most?
The original, for sure.
Sarah?
Oh, part 6.
The one I've seen the most is part 8, which is why it's so high up on my list. It's one of the first Friday the 13th films I've seen. I like the way it was. So yeah, that's it. Let us know if you agree with our list, which you're probably not going to, because we're not going to agree with our own list. We're going to look at them in a minute and go, no, that should have moved. That should have went somewhere else. So next episode is about, Stephen.
It's about Spookies, the movie Spookies.
From 1986, the comedy horror film, which I haven't watched since I watched the Vinegar Syndrome recent release. So I'll be rewatching that, ready for this. And the other thing we'll be talking about is horror films from 1986, which was actually quite a good year for horror films. So there'll be quite a few to talk about in that. A bit like the Friday the 13th films, we'll probably give it about 10 minutes per each film.
Yeah.
Outside of that, to kind of break it down a bit. But we've got a big break between this one and the next one. The next episode, it goes live on the 31st of July, 2020, which is about 5 weeks from now.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a big old gap between that now to have a bit of a chill. So, thanks for listening. As always, share us around, subscribe, do whatever it is you have to do on your podcast providers, and check us out everywhere on Horror Screams Video Vault, the website for reviews and news, etc. And if you go onto the Franchise Corner area, you can read reviews on all of the Friday the 13th films by our very own Stephen West. And see, actually, it'd be interesting to for people to look at your list. Numbers just in there, and then go back through your reviews and see, hang on a minute, he didn't say that about that.
Exactly, yeah. I reckon that's changed quite a lot because, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it will change again.
Oh, yeah, it always changes. But yes, that is the next one. Next one's going to be a bit of a comedy horror thing to look forward to. So, yes, it'll be interesting. And, yeah, thanks for listening. And tune in next time on the 31st of July, 2020. And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
And bye from me.